spiel, you
Don't
know?
you hate it when OBS resets your audio, everybody? All right, we're going to try this from the top. I'm so sorry to all of our speakers. We were getting into it. I see you guys in the comment section. Just blame it all on Ryan. It's fine. The focus rate has to be set up properly with the inputs to get this going. Welcome to Modern Day Debate, everybody. Tonight, we are going to be debating globe versus flat Earth. To get us started, we have Matthew. You got 6 minutes on the floor, and I'm refreshing your clock there, buddy. Floor is yours.
All right, I want to say thank you very much to Modern Day Debates for inviting me here. I want to say thank you to the creator of heaven and earth for allowing us to be here and discuss these very important topics. I want to say thank you to my flat earth partner in this debate, Nathan. What's up, man? I want to say thank you to the Globers on the other side, PhD Tony and TJump. Thank you guys for showing up. All right, so here we go. Basically, well, how I understand it, globe theory has four mandatory conditionals. Okay. The first of which being curvature. If the Earth is a globe, then there would be some sort of shape. There would be some sort of globular shape that could be measured. And now that curvature rate, which people can, we could talk about for 1 mile, there should be 0.666 feet of curvature over 1 mile. Okay. Over 10 miles, there should be 66.6 feet of curvature. Okay. Over 10 miles. Now, over 100 miles, there should be 6,669 feet of curvature, which we don't see. Any way you cut it, we don't see it. Now, when I see 666 all those times, you know what I think of? Now, watch. I know you guys may not like the Bible, but how about Iron Maiden? You know, let he who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. Its number is 666. So basically, Satan put his signature on the globe theory, okay? So right there, that's the first mandatory conditional, the curvature, which is not there. Second one is rotation. Now, if the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour, which no matter way you cut it, okay, no matter way you cut it, the Earth is allegedly spinning 1,000 miles an hour, right? Which we don't feel. No one can feel, okay? Maybe some expensive little device that's designed to give you that result may feel it. But anything, no one, plane hover or a helicopter hovering in place, the Earth isn't moving, okay? If I jump in the air, okay? If I T-jump in the air, right? 1 second, the Earth would allegedly be spinning so fast under me that 4.3 miles should be spinning underneath me, okay? No matter how you cut it, no matter how much fairy mathematics you lay on that, it is not happening, okay? And I know Globers might say, yeah, that's like half the speed of an hour hand on a clock, okay? Which is reasonable, right? However, theoretical globe Earth is much bigger than a clock, okay? What that means, it's more ground to cover in the same amount of time, okay? So that's the second mandatory conditional, which is not present, the rotation. Okay, the third one is tilt, okay? Allegedly on globe Earth, on the globe theory, there is a 23.4 degree tilt back and forth, which is allegedly the reason for the seasons. But what I would like to demonstrate using a pair, because as we know, the high priest of globe religion, Neil deGrasse Tyson, actually said Earth is pear-shaped, okay? I'm not putting words in his mouth, okay? Now watch. The reason there is no tilt, okay? Polaris would be directly above the North Pole of this pair, right? Doesn't matter how far away it is. Polaris is directly above the North Pole of this pair. Now, not only Polaris doesn't tilt, but Orion, the constellations, the fixed stars do not tilt. Now, this is the third mandatory conditional for the globe theory. Allegedly, the Earth tilts like this, with all of the stars tilting perfectly. Do you guys see what I'm saying? My hand represents the northern celestial hemisphere. I hope you guys are following what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be weird or throw some weird stuff at you guys. But the reason we know there's no tilt, the sky, it's like this. The sky would stay put and the earth would tilt like that. But that's not what we see because the earth is not tilting. What that is the sun's path goes from the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn. There is no earth tilt, right? Next, here we go. The fourth mandatory conditional, which we can discuss if you guys want. I'm open-minded to whatever you got to say, okay? The fourth mandatory conditional for the globe theory to work, gravity, so that people could stand on the bottom of this pear. You see, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or do, you know what I mean? This is what the globe theory is telling me. Since I've been a kid in school, this is what the globe theory's been telling me. People are standing on the bottom of this pear dancing, right? Gravity, right? Now, as I understand gravity, it is the greater the mass, the greater the force of attraction, right? This is what I've heard. You guys, I don't know if you guys still agree with it or not, but greater the mass, greater the force of attraction. The reason we know that isn't true is because if there was something that weighed 100 pounds and something that weighed 1 pound, if gravity were true, the heavier object having more mass would indeed fall faster. But that's not what we see because it's not happening. The other one that I know about gravity is mass attracting mass. Now, okay, we don't see that. When I look in the sky, I do not see the
10
moon
seconds.
being attracted. 10 seconds, I don't see the moon being attracted to the earth. I don't see the earth being attracted to the sun because there's no gravity. All of those mandatory conditionals for the globe are non-existent. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Matthew, for your opening statement. Just remind everybody who's hanging out in the live chat, if this is your first time here at Modern Day Debate, hit that like button and share this out in those spaces you like having these conversations. We super appreciate it. We're a neutral platform. We host these debates on science, politics, and religion. We hope everybody feels welcome here. This is a friendly space. We're going to hand the floor over to Nathan. You have up to 6 minutes to present your case for the flat Earth.
All right. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you very much to the creator as well for this get together. To Matthew as well, my partner, and the interlocutors here, Anthony and TJump. Tom, thank you guys for being here, for making it, for this discussion. So if I may, can I share my screen, please? Let's see. Share. My screen is up here.
Sonny and share, buddy. I'm seeing our Zoom meeting. There you go.
You see slide now?
I see the slide. You're ready to go.
Okay, so to go off of what Matthew was saying here, we're talking about the shape of the Earth, the cosmology, geomorphology, the Earth shape. And so is it a globe or is it a plane? These are two contentions. So we have the observations and the evidences. So for the case of curvature, we have things that would falsify the claim of curvature, and then any recreated demonstrations. And then we have what would support curvature and any recreated demonstrations if you are contrary to the curve claim. So we have here the four lights experiment as well as an observation of the base of some poles, and there are multiple data points which we can see the base of, and these data points you can plot out on a Cartesian coordinate grid, which will give you a line as a geometry shape of the surface of water, which most of the Earth is. And so this is a flat appearance that can be recreated on a known flat surface to scale. As far as this, I've tried to reach out to several people of the globe side to get like a four lights recreation on a known curved surface. Because talking about the shape of the Earth, the ground is the most important thing, second to sky or how things act upon the ground. So the shape of the ground. So this is yet to be recreated on a known curved surface. So I put here an image that would be the attempted recreated demonstration. There's yet to be one. Maybe it's because there are different sizes to the United States depending on the image of the Earth that we use according to the computer generated composited stitched together data. And so the support for curvature would be things like the boats disappearing over the bottom or bottom up in water, or only being able to see the tops of towers for skylines, which is what that middle picture is on the right side. And so this here, and so this is actually using on a known flat surface. This is using a realistic variable of temperature variation and inversion. And the known flat surface is actually able to recreate and demonstrate what would be a bottom-up disappearance, but the globe cannot recreate an apparent flat position on a known curved surface. And then to go with rotation, what would falsify rotation would be something like the Michelson-Morley result for the Michelson-Morley experiments, where they had barely any fringe shift, about 1/6 of what would be predicted for the claimed motion of the globe Earth, which is an absolute motion of axial rotation. Added on to that, compounded in, would be the orbital of the sun, the orbit of the galaxy, and the galactic drift. And so the explanation is that everything is relative. The maths are equally valid for a non-rotating Earth, or for a non-moving Earth, just as valid as a moving Earth. And so you can't tell which is which and which is motion here. And so then for rotation, what would support rotation? Well, there are things that will be claimed like hurricanes on the north or south side of the equator. So how a flat model would attempt to describe why the rotation is the way it is because there is an equator. And so if you're on the inside of the equator or the outside, you're going to have the sources of influence, the sun and moon, and things of the ether. They would be coming in from the bottom right or the top right of a hurricane on the north or south. As far as tilt goes, what would falsify tilt would be something like the solar analemma. We see a small circle in the north. If you look at a still, I maybe should have used that instead. You have a large loop in the south and then a small loop in the north, which would match the sun making, if I can go back here, the sun making smaller circles on the inside and bigger circles on the outside. And then you also have the response to this would be the astrolabe, which and all other things like the Antikythera mechanism, ancient navigational celestial navigation devices that are still accurate today. Things that support the tilt are supposed to be things like that we can see a rotation of the stars at 15 degrees per hour. So that supports that it's the Earth spinning at 15 degrees. But we have a refutation of tilt also using the star rotation, because when we see parallax of the stars, not in terms of like other side of the sun parallax, but rotational motion, anytime you're moving in a body, you're going to look out and the closest objects are going to move the fastest and the distant objects are going to move the slowest. All of the stars, no matter how distant or close they are claimed to be, all appear to move in uniform motion, which would imply via parallax that everything is equidistant as far as stars go. And then lastly, we have gravity. The falsification of gravity is the claim of, actually, if we get into gravity, we'll get into it. But I do want to say one last thing. There are experts in the field of various very complicated, difficult mathematics, sciences, things that make the world better every day. And one of the interlocutors here, Tony, is one of those people. There are people who do very accurate, credible work, whose math is accurate, challenging, and they still get it right. It goes through a transform and it still works for us. But I don't want to have any accusations of people trying to be bogus or deceivers or liars. They're very well-meaning people. And I just want to make that clear that there are very smart people who it's everything they're doing is accurate as far as the mathematics go. And so I think that is everything. Yeah, this is just something on NASA here. So
all right, we can get back
I think
to
I should be able to stop sharing here.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you had anything else that you
Thank you
wanted to
very
go
much.
over, you are very welcome. And thank you, everybody. And thank you, Nathan, for your opening statement there. We're going to kick it over to the globe side. So, Dr. Tony, I'll ask you to go first. You have 6 minutes to present the case for the globe Earth. And thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the kind welcome from my interlocutors, and thank you to TJump for agreeing to appear with me. Let me just start my share. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yep, we are coming through. I can see your
Okay,
presentation.
so we've got two models, and the key question as to which model works best is to compare those models versus observations. That's the key element of science. If one model fails to give predictions, then it loses by default. You don't get to just win a competition by saying, sure, I can do that. You have to actually do stuff. So let's look at the most basic navigational problem that you can face. You know where you are, point one, you know the latitude and longitude, you know where you want to go, point two, longitude, theta two. How far away is it, and what direction do I need to go in? Now, if the Earth is a flat and we accept that one angle of separation corresponds to approximately 69 miles or 111 kilometers, then this should be an easy solution on the flat Earth. We know the two sides of the triangle, and the angle between them. We can work out the third side and the angle psi. If you accept that geometry, then this is your flat Earth map. There's no other map that has those properties. The way we do it with a spheroidal calculation is exactly the same, except that it's a spherical triangle. We know two sides, we know the angle between them, we therefore solve for the third side and the angle psi, and these are the formula that give those. Now, this is a very long-standing problem that a lot of people have been faced with. When Bly and his 18 crew members were thrown off the Bounty, they had to navigate 7,000 kilometers to safety, and they had to do that without making landfall. The first time that they made landfall, they got attacked by islanders and one of their crew was killed. So they had to work out how much water they had, how much food they had, could they make that journey without making landfall? And they were able to do it. Similarly, the Shackleton expedition to Antarctica, their ship, the Endurance, got trapped in the ice. Then it got destroyed in the ice. Then they camped on the ice until it melted. And then they took rowboats to Elephant Island. From Elephant Island, 5 of them had to navigate 1,500 kilometers or almost 1,000 miles to get from Elephant Island to South Georgia. And they made it. Had their navigation been off, they would not have. We have hundreds and thousands of intercontinental marine transports every day. We know what techniques they use, and we've been using them for hundreds of years. Here is a manual, a sailor's manual from the 17th century, written by Samuel Sturmey. And it's the problem it's discussing here is how to navigate from the mouth of the Amazon to the island of Lundy. We can show that they use spherical geometry to do that. The flat Earth is incapable of telling us how much fuel, food, and water we need. It's not capable of giving us those answers. You can't just say that your distance formula is the same as the spherical distance formula. That won't work. If you do that, then you have to agree that the distance from McMurdo Station to Mawson Station is 3,000 kilometers, not however much you need. Similarly, we use the same navigation techniques for aircraft, and we have done here, for instance, 5 intercontinental air journeys. What I've done is I've averaged the outbound and the inbound flight times, which are in red in that 4th column. I've multiplied that by the average cruising speed to give that 5th column, and I compare that to the spherical distance estimate in the next column. The final column is the flat Earth distance element, and you can see that the flat Earth distance elements are generally larger than the aircraft could travel in that time frame. For Sydney to Santiago, which is the shortest flight in terms of time taken, the flat Earth says that it's actually almost twice as long as it is in practice. Meanwhile, flat Earth tells us that the shortest of these flights is actually Seattle to Dubai, which is one of the longer flights by time taken. Again, flat Earth fails to give us aircraft fuel requirements or food requirements. We can actually check physical objects. Here we have submarine cables. One submarine cable going from Sydney to Hillsborough. We can compare the cable length that we know versus the spherical distance formula and the flat Earth distance formula. We can see that the flat Earth distance formula is several thousand kilometers. Well, is it more than 1,000? It's about 1,000 kilometers too long. even at 100% tension. We can have a look at the Perth to Muscat one. We can see that again, the flat Earth distance is just too long. There are hundreds of these. Similarly, we can look at railways. So here's a physical object. The railway between Kalgoorlie and Takula, we can measure the track length. It's 1,280 kilometers. If we look at the spherical distance estimate, that's 1,240 kilometers. The flat Earth estimate is 3,000 kilometers. So we can show that the flat Earth does not get that right. Similarly, we can look at Jacksonville to Pensacola. We can see that the track separation is 593 kilometers. The spherical distance is 533. The flat Earth distance 643.
10 seconds.
We can now check the geometry. Flat Earth suggests that distance between longitudes should increase with distance south. It doesn't. We can show that here, but we can also go to Argentina and see that the track length in Argentina is even shorter than the Northern Hemisphere track length.
All right. I just ask you to stop the screen share, and thank you so much, Tony, for your introductory statement. Just want to remind everybody, if you haven't already, hit the like button. It only takes a second, and it really helps us out when we're having these live streams to get it boosted up in the algorithm. TJump, 6 minutes on the floor to present the case for the globe Earth, and the floor is yours, bud.
All right. So yeah, the Earth is a globe. All the objections they said don't make sense, like the fact that when you jump, you don't feel it moving. When you jump in a plane, you don't feel it moving. When you jump in a train, you don't feel it moving. The fact that you jump would not indicate its motion unless you don't understand that there's an atmosphere around you that's also moving. You feel changes in motion, not motion. For one of the other ones, there's curvature. There is curvature. So yes, we see curvature. We can prove curvature. Curvature's been proven. You can literally just bounce radio waves off the clouds and have them bounce back and forth. And you can calculate where they are. Is very, very easy. Not difficult at all. Yeah, that's good. I'll just conclude there. Moving like open discussion.
All right, no problem. You still had 5 minutes on the floor there, so we're going to kick it into an open discussion, everybody. If we go into muted rounds with too much crosstalk, we'll do that at your guys' request in the live chat. But we are going to do a Q&A at the end of this discussion, so get your questions in there, and we're going to ask each of our speakers here those questions at the end of the debate. So without further ado, let's kick it back over to Matthew and Nathan to respond to some of the things that they just heard. And I put you on mute there, Matthew. Sorry, just heard some background noise while he was making his intro. So I'll just ask you to come off mute, and we should be good to go.
Can you hear me?
Brilliant. All right, let's rock it, fellas.
Yeah, I was coughing a bit, and I'm sorry if it was loud. I didn't mean to interrupt anything. I apologize for that. So excuse me.
No problem.
But anyway,
let's go.
Mr. TJump, I heard your rebuttal about how if we were to jump inside a plane, do you understand what you said about that? If you were standing inside a plane and you jump and you don't feel it, what do you think the reason would be really that if you wouldn't feel it? How about if you were on top of the plane? Mr. TJump, say you were one of those wing walkers out there on top of a plane. How fast do you want to be going? Any speed you want to go, 400, 500?
How does that relate to the question?
What will happen if you toss a coin?
How does that relate to the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What if you're jumping in a plane, is this plane traveling in a linear, straight, constant speed?
You can go in a curved speed. That's perfectly fine. You still wouldn't feel it.
So you don't feel. What's that?
Yeah, let's get Tony in here.
I just wanted to ask. So both of you made a conflation that I don't think is warranted. Here's a cube. It's going to be a cube whether or not it rotates. It's going to be a cube whether or not it is tilted. It's going to be a cube whether or not it exerts a force or whether or not it is acted on by a force. The debate here is about the shape of the Earth, not whether or not it spins, not whether or not it's tilted, not whether or not gravity is as described by mainstream science. The debate here is about the shape of the object that we are standing on. So it's very easy for flat Earth, and this is a complicated enough topic that I think we need to stick to it. The flat earthers do like to sort of say, well, there's this, there's that, there's the other stuff. Let's talk about the shape of the Earth.
Yes, I agree. Tony, do you mind if I address a couple of the things that you had brought up in your opener?
Feel free.
You had mentioned the flat diagrams of triangulation using a star, as well as two ground positions. And so you showed an example of what we would see like in math if you're doing trig and you're drawing on a piece of paper, you're drawing a triangle. And so maybe here I could do so this is a triangle that you would have in math class, and this is just on a board or a piece of paper or whatever. And so this would be how you would use trig to try to calculate your angles. But I think what this is a misrepresentation, because if we're talking about the real world and determining the Earth's shape, in reality, there are all other variables that are impacted in on our measurements. So there is the medium of the environment we're looking through with optics, and so light is traveling. So the true position of the star could be different. It's also a claim that there is a glass. I would advocate for a firmament, a dome structure. So there is a medium change that could be affecting the position of the stars, as well as things like the atmosphere that would essentially make squiggly lines added into the triangle. It wouldn't be a straight line trig. That would work if there was no atmosphere, no medium change, and everything was direct line of sight. But because there are these variables, I think that in particular is something that is not. It works as a mathematic on a piece of paper, but it is not
allow me
real
to ask,
world applicable.
Yeah, allow me to ask you a question though. Do you agree that we can navigate accurately and correctly, and we can work out how far we need to travel using the spheroidal Earth distance approximation?
Yeah, we can travel using what we have gathered for our travel logs as far as ground traveling, how long it takes us to traverse from one point on the ground to the other. As far as the stars bearing on that for their general position, what our zenith star is. I think that we can do navigation because there has been navigation for a very long time, including going back to antiquity, where there were flat Earth cultures who were navigating successfully with their flat Earth views.
Could you give me an example of a flat Earth culture that was capable of intercontinental sailing?
So the Scandinavian cultures, the Vikings were able to get to like Canada and to North America, parts of North America. I believe that there was some intercontinental sailing with the Chinese as well. And
do you know how the Vikings sailed that? Do you know how did they use charts? Did they use instruments? Were they using calculations, or were they using a combination of dead reckoning and sun angles?
I would reckon that they were probably using a mixture of various charts, positionings,
Okay.
maybe coastal sailing as well, landmark navigation.
Do you know how they found Greenland? Do you
What's
know
that?
how they found? Do you know how the Vikings found Greenland and found Canada?
How so?
It was by accident. They got caught in storms, blown off course, and they found themselves near these things. So it wasn't a matter of them navigating successfully into areas that they had never been before. They traveled accidentally into areas that they had never been before, and then based on the wind that they had experienced during the storm, they navigated their way back. But you mentioned also the Antikythera mechanism, and I hear flat earthers mention that a lot. The Antikythera mechanism dates from around 130 CE, and by that stage, we know for a fact that the Greeks were using spherical trigonometry in order to calculate eclipses, sun positions, and planetary positions. We have the textbooks that they wrote on these subjects. Also, the claim, you know, this is a slightly different topic, but the claim that the stars don't move is demonstrably false. We know from these old star charts that there has been precession of the equinoxes. Yes, Matthew?
Okay, I would like to address just a few things. First, you did lie when you said we didn't address that we were talking about the shape of the Earth. If you play back the video, the first material conditional I gave for the globe theory to be true was the curvature of the Earth. So I forgive you for lying, right? Okay, next example.
I object to that characterization. I object strenuously. I never.
Play back the video. Play back the video.
I did not accuse anyone of
You
lying.
did.
No, I didn't.
You said we didn't bring up the shape of the Earth. That was the first thing I said.
Never left my mouth.
You said you were talking. You showed a Rubik's cube, and you said it doesn't matter if it's spinning. We're talking about the shape of it, and I was just then. I was like, that was the first thing I brought up was that we were talking about the shape, right?
Yes, and I didn't say you didn't. What I said was that your questions. What I said was that your questions about rotation and planes all have to do are irrelevant to the shape.
Rotation is irrelevant, right?
Pardon?
How do you think? Can I? Okay, really quick. Yeah, on globe theory. Really quick, PhD Tony, the reason rotation would be important on a globe Earth is that would be the reason for having day and night. I'm not disrespecting you. It's not irrelevant.
But
that's the first thing I brought up. But I do want to change the subject really quick. I want to just kind of like, really quick, I want to go back to TJump, man. If someone
stop. Before we go back to me, I want to fix this problem. So like,
well, I want to get off my chest. Because you said what if someone jumps on a plane?
Just stop. Right? This is moderation is going terrible here.
Yeah, well,
you've missed the point, Matthew. You've missed the point.
Go ahead,
Anthony. We stop. You missed the point. So Anthony, when he was bringing up the cube, he was telling us to stay on topic of the shape. He wasn't saying you didn't address the shape in your opening. He did not say that. That was not a part of his claim. He was saying let's stay on topic about the shape. So you calling him a liar, you were wrong. Okay, you were just wrong.
Dude, I was talking about the shape. Everything I mentioned.
I don't care, Matthew. You missed the point.
I don't care if you don't care.
Matthew, stop talking.
I don't
stop
care
talking.
if you don't care.
All right, we're gonna let TJump have a second here because he hasn't said anything in a hot minute. So go ahead, TJump.
Tony did not say that what you said was irrelevant to the globe. That was not the point. Was not the point. He was saying that. He was making an argument about the rotation not being relevant because that's a separate topic, which is fine, but that was a different thing. He brought up one point. You calling him a liar was wrong, okay? Because he wasn't claiming you never addressed the shape in the beginning. I don't know why you're spinning your fingers like an idiot because it doesn't address the point.
Okay, if it's about flat Earth, what do you think we're talking about? How would we not
stop Matthew? Stop Matthew. Stop Matthew. Go back to the first claim. One claim at a time, Matthew. You claimed he was a liar. Because he said
we weren't addressing the shape.
Okay, I think he already clarified what he had said in his intro, Matthew. So I do want to move on from this the idea that he was lying in the intro. Maybe there was a misunderstanding, but Nathan had something he wanted to ask. So let's carry on and try to progress the conversation because we're getting into meta debate right now, and it's
I think he's just talking. There are various topics of this discussion, but focusing on the shape of the Earth is the most relevant, the primary. In determining the shape of the Earth, we should talk about the shape of the Earth. Tony, I completely agree with you. You're being, I think, forthright and very on topic. So I wanted to bring up that you talk about the food and fuel and things for travel, going from location to location, and how I would explain how that is able to be done is that we are able to we're able to gauge our distance traveled over the ground. And then we're able to say, okay, if we're going to go this far, we're going to know we're going to need this much food to last this many crew members. And we're going to need to bring this kind of water. if they were able to know that they were by certain lands, they might have been there before. If you go onto one land and then some people are not too fond of you being there, maybe you continue to go on your voyage and you find another land and get out there. Are they being, I'm not sure if they're being attacked everywhere they go or anything like that, but if they can find resources on the lands that they settle at, but if they know the destination is so many so many thousands of miles away, then maybe they're already prepared for that, because going into an unknown open expanse of water, I think would be pretty difficult to reconcile how many resources you should bring along. So I would think maybe there's prior knowledge to the locations that they're going, and we are able to topographically lay out the distance of our ground coverage.
Okay, but one of the examples I gave was Shackleton sailing from Elephant Island to South Georgia, a journey that had never been made before, at a time of year that it had never been made before, in a vessel in which it had never been made before. So the claim that it's based entirely on experience is not true. And similarly, you know, if you've got only 2 data points, which is your current position, which is what Bly had. Bly had his current position and he had his destination, and he had to calculate how much food he needed to make that destination. And he knew the distance and he got the distance right. We have his logbooks. We know how he calculated it. We know how he calculated it, and we know how he did it. And it's not just actually people traveling. So you know, I've raised the concept of boats and planes and trains, etc. But actually, the speed with which earthquake vibrations travel, the speed with which tsunamis travel, the speed with which atmospheric pressure waves travel, the speed with which sorry, what was the other one? Weather systems travel. All of these speeds are consistent with spherical distance calculations. So it's not just a matter of, you know, people doing this. Everything travels everything travels as though the Earth is spheroidal.
Matt, do you mind if I jump in and just ask some about this?
Oh yeah, I'm listening. I'm watching what's going on. You're doing great, man.
Let's move into
Okay,
1 minute
so-
timed rounds for each side, so that you guys
Yeah.
can make sure you're bouncing back and you're not throwing too much stuff out there all at once. So 1 minute on the floor.
Just to continue with this with you, Tony, about so they knew the distance that they were going to a land, but they didn't know where they were going, and it was the first time they had sailed using this craft, first time taking this route due to weather conditions, first time going to an unknown location, but they also knew it. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding you there, but if
So
they know the distance,
nobody had. So it's not the where they were going nobody had been. It was where they were nobody had been.
All right, 30
So
seconds
nobody had been on Elephant Island before. They were trying to make Elephant Island to South Georgia. Nobody had made that journey before.
All right, another 30
So
seconds
they
there, Nathan,
were-
with that clarification.
yeah, okay. So
Format.
maybe I would suspect that if someone is in the dark about where they're at and then where they're trying to go, there would be very unknown variables there that would make navigation hard, so more difficult to really get an estimate of how far you're going to go. So maybe you're going to try to if you're in an unknown starting point, you know your end point, you still can't really gauge the distance, so you might just bring as many resources
5
as you
seconds.
can, what you think might be reasonable, and hopefully get all the crewmen there well and able to enjoy the landfall. Ahoy,
Well,
landlubber.
Okay, so they did know where they were because they were able to make celestial observations of their latitude and longitude. So they knew where they were. It was just that nobody had tried to make this journey before. I don't know how to say this in a way that's going to clarify it more. They knew where they were. They knew where they needed to be. Nobody had made that journey before.
Okay, so they were taking a route that had not been done. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, man.
Hey, thank you, James. Thank you, James. Okay, Tony, I know what you're talking about. The people, they needed to make sure they had enough food and fuel to get to where they're going, right? They wanted to make the right calculations, but maybe you overlook that if they're sailing, their fuel is the wind. And if they're hungry, they could fish, man. They could cast their nets and get fish. So I don't know what you mean about they're going to be worried about all the food and fuel. Because, I mean, what kind of fuel do they need on a wind-powered craft? I don't mean to make you feel weird or anything. I know you're making a point, but
So where do they get fresh water from?
they just oak barrels or whatever. That's probably the only thing they really needed. I mean, the
Okay,
other
so-
supplies, but
So they had to work out, you know, you say that they can fish, but actually British sailors were pretty loath to eat fish. They considered it not person food.
I can understand that. But I mean,
but the fresh water is one of the resources that you most need, and that you can't find at sea. So they had to do a calculation of how far they were traveling, how long it would take them to get there, and how much resources they had. Now, I don't care whether or not you think they got the distance right. What I care about is that if you were on that ship, if you were captain of that ship, you'd be dead because you have no way of making those calculations.
Yeah, so if you were going to basically if you're gonna have a point 2 points above the ground, you could essentially you could look up here at your zenith, and then you could determine
Just
the
1 second.
distance
Nobody
and
can
what that
see that
translates to on the
yet.
ground coverage, and then find the location that you're going to, and you could then gauge the distance between the point where you're at and where you're going on the ground.
yeah, you're
like a
talking
door
about
frame.
celestial navigation. You're talking about using the fixed stars to know your location on the non-rotating level Earth, right?
No,
That's exactly what I think it is. I mean, that's like a life
No,
and death gamble that,
it's
you know.
not.
Well, you say.
What I'm talking
Okay.
about is if you know your location here and you know where you need to get to there, how do you calculate the distance between them? And you drawing a diagram like that doesn't actually help, because without extremely precise chronometers and ephemerides, you don't know what star is azimuthally above your destination.
Any thoughts there, TJump, before we pass it over? You're on mute right now there, TJump. So if you're...
I know I'm on mute. No, I think it's a complete waste of time. I'm not really interested in this specific topic. It's like flat earthers can do nothing. They've never built anything. They've never traveled anywhere. They never discovered anything. This doesn't work. It's a complete waste of time. The globe earthers do. We discover things. We make progress. We change the world. Until the flarfs can actually do something with their hypothesis that the world is flat, then they have nothing. They can do nothing. I don't care about their complaints, their opinions, their feelings, their thoughts mean nothing. Go do something. Build me something. Discover something. Go find the firmament. Do something. Your opinions are just not evidence. So I don't care about your word games.
All right, thoughts on that, fellas?
May I speak?
Just 1 second there, Tony. We'll let them respond to what they just heard there.
May I speak?
Sure thing, Matt.
Okay, Tony, you mentioned like they wouldn't know what star they're looking at. I'm not trying to make you look dumb, man, but there's something called constellations that are quite noticeable. Perhaps you've seen them. And if you could see Orion, you know it's Orion. Okay? I'm not trying to make you look dumb, but dude, some of the things you're saying, you're like, it's like, I know you're smarter than me, dude. You and TJump are smarter than me. Why is it I can understand these complex things that are really like obvious? But it's not even complex, it's obvious. And like you guys are smarter than me. Constellations, dude.
Tony, can I add a qualifier real quick?
You got 15 seconds, and then we got to hand it over before we get too much in there.
Tony would not look dumb if he was wearing a dunce cap. I want to emphasize that. But I do ask Tony as a qualifier to the premise of this. If they knew the location they were going, how did they know where it was? Don't they have to say the star should be above that location and that land, and then they look down and say that's where we're going to go towards? How did they know where the distant land was without using the sky? And
Okay.
Go.
I'm going to explain this and I'm going to use small words for you. My
Thanks.
point was not that they can't recognize stars. My point was that they cannot identify which stars are exactly azimuthal at their destination at a particular point in time. They would need an ephemeris, a specifically detailed ephemeris that would, and an extremely accurate chronometer. If we were doing this today, we could do this, yes, but just knowing that that star is in that constellation is no help in this problem. So prattling on about constellations is, and claiming that it makes me look dumb is so pathetically inept that I am struggling to really understand what you're talking about. I explained very clearly what the problem is. And the other point that I would make is that they know the coordinates of the point that they're navigating to because they have books in which the coordinates of ports are written down. So those people at the local port made celestial observations, noted their latitudes and longitudes, wrote them down in a book, and the people have access to that book.
Right. And just to clarify, this here in this example that we're talking about, this is the example involving Antarctica and South America, not the destination going east to west in Indonesia, in that area, right? We're talking about the Antarctic. They both knew their end direction,
yes.
Their end goal coordinates.
Yes.
So they had sailed there before and knew where they were going.
No. The mutiny had not been to that point in Indonesia. They knew that the port in Indonesia was there because it was in a chart that they had. They had not actually been to it before. Somebody else had been to it.
All right, you guys still have another 25 seconds.
And I was listening.
I think that this is. I actually think that this is. I actually think that this is getting to be a waste of time, as the two of you don't know how celestial navigation works, and you don't know how these distance calculations work.
All right.
Yep.
Over to you, fellas.
So I would like to actually introduce another data set.
Okay, just hold that thought right there, Tony. We'll let them respond to what you just said there, and we'll let you introduce that in just one second. Matthew, you got something to say there, so I'm going to set another 1 minute. Go ahead.
Matt, if you want to go, and then can we introduce a data set to advocate towards a
I just want to say something really quick if you want to finish that previous topic, but Tony, yeah, you mentioned they did use celestial navigation, so they had to know where they were on the Earth, and yeah, it's like, so they're using the stars. If they're at sea, what do you think they would use to navigate? Like, say they're out there for like, extended periods of time. The only thing they would have is the stars. Nothing to do with like calculating sphericity of any kind. Only the stars above. And I don't mean to prattle on or sound dumb or I'm just ignorant, but I just want to put that out there that the stars, that was important. Nothing about ball Earth. Nathan, I'm sorry.
So why do the sailing manuals instruct people in spherical trigonometry?
Excuse me?
Why do sailing manuals instruct people in spherical trigonometry?
I mean, why would they perpetuate a lie? I don't know. People put all kinds of lies in books.
They're using so that there's a cyclical nature to the stars, cyclical patterns, and if you have the circles being made above us or around us, as far as what one model would claim or the other, you're using those circles and those trackable, predictable patterns that have been repeated throughout history and tracked throughout our logs of the stars you're using those to be able to navigate. And if they had maps of the locations they were going, those could all be charted out star to star, ground location compared with the sky location of where objects are. And then they're able to navigate to this area that had been explored and already. So they knew where they were going. They knew the distances because they had traveled it and logged it.
Except we have their logbooks and we can tell that that isn't what they did. We know how they did this calculation. It wasn't in the way you're suggesting.
Okay, so if they had calculations in their logs to the distance of the port that they were going to, and this was that someone had already been there, but they themselves had not, they are going to calculate the distance that they already had a map to the location.
No, they did not have. All they had was the coordinates of the location.
They had the coordinates.
Yes.
And then they had to determine the distance to that coordinate.
Yes.
So,
and they didn't do it in the way you're suggesting. But look, it is clear to me that you guys don't know what an ephemeris is or why it's useful, why it would be necessary for the calculation that you're discussing. So let's move on to another data set. Okay.
Okay. Maybe I'll ask you later about what that device is, but okay, I have a data set. If I could bring it up, I am curious.
Just one second there, Nathan. We're just if you can hold on to yours now, I'm just going to ask you to hold on to yours. We're going to let Tony do his first. So Tony, go ahead.
All right, I just need to share my screen. Is that okay?
Sure thing.
Okay. All right, imagine a sphere. Imagine that there's some sort of vibration at the top of the sphere. We would expect that vibration to spread out like this. And if you look across to the left, that's the top view. It's spreading out like a circle. Now it moves into the other hemisphere. If you look to the right, into the bottom view, you'll see that it starts converging on the other pole, like a circle. Now let's look at an actual earthquake. This is the Macquarie Rise earthquake of 2004. The epicenter is that red star. The blue circles are the most recent seismic stations to receive it. If we run forward in time, we can see that the signal moves out in a roughly circular fashion. We can see also that it has made it to the far side of Antarctica without going through the northern hemisphere in any sense. If you look at the flat Earth model on the right, that doesn't make any sense. But we're going to run through in time, and you can see the circularity of this wavefront spreading out as it does so. And if you look on the right on the flat Earth model, you can see the circular pattern. Let me just rewind it a little bit so that you can see that better. You can see on the right-hand panel, you can see the circular convergence on the point opposite on the side of the Earth. So we made a prediction about how earthquakes should behave. We went out, we looked at some earthquake data, we got an exact match. And again, there is no flat Earth model for this. Here is a model versus prediction. The model are the solid lines. The predictions are, the observations are the dots. So the model predictions are the solid lines. You will observe that as the arrivals get later, get further and further away, the wave seems to be traveling faster. Why is that? Well, on a flat Earth, there's no explanation for that, but on a spherical Earth, there is. The wave is traveling less distance, and it's doing it at greater depth where there is higher velocity. So we have observations, we have a model, we can predict, and this is 1 million predictions.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Earthquake, give me its depth, give me its origin. I can predict the waveform arrival times for you. You have nothing.
All right, thank you
Matt,
so much.
I'm gonna jump in real quick on this one.
Yeah, we'll give you each a minute.
Okay, Tony, can I just ask a real quick question? I've heard that there is some difficulty with waves traveling through Antarctica, the continent. Is that any sort of accurate? Just as a qualifier.
Well, there are somewhat lower velocities under Antarctica. It seems to be somewhat warmer, but it's not a major problem, no.
Okay. So how I would try to explain, and one thing about and even this can relate with the distances on the ground and everything. Flat Earth, we claim to use those kinds of maps, like the azimuthal equidistant map and everything, are more to get concepts down. I wouldn't claim that they're accurate as far as the distances in a lot of senses. Though latitude and longitude seem to be accurate, but the military has the accurate maps. But how I would explain that kind of if you could go to your slide for around 190, there you show that you get a mark over here, and I think what could happen is you have the waves going out, and then they're going to angle, and everything is going to
seconds.
Eventually converge antipodal, and then it's going to go back and bounce. And this is not supposed to be some sort of shape, like weird shape or nothing. I'm not into the unicursal stars and all that.
Why does the wave not propagate across the center of your disk?
TJump, you were making some expressions there. Do you have anything to add?
Oh, I've been messing with my audio, trying to get my audio to work where I can send my audio to my stream while I can play video games. I just got it to work, which is great. So what I would say is that what Tony said about earthquakes is a great example. So if there's an earthquake in Malaysia, he can predict where the earthquake's going to go, to which city, where, everywhere, and get it right 100% of the time. So like, if the globe is correct and there's an earthquake here, you'll get an equidistant circle that'll go to all the places. And if you get an earthquake in every different continent, they'll connect in some way. It'll always be some equidistant to some other one. But if the world's flat, that won't be the case. There'll be an earthquake in some part of the very far right, and it'll never touch the very far left, or it'll be very, very far away. We don't see that. Never, ever, in the history of ever. It doesn't happen. When there's an earthquake, it'll go equally in every direction and hit every continent equally in every direction. It's never the case that there's just one area where it just never gets to. It just doesn't happen. So Tony's example of earthquakes is great, because if earthquakes happen on a round sphere and they happen regularly in every different location, then we can prove for a fact the world must be round. That's it. Game over. You lose. Because if it's flat, that gives a completely different spread of the way earthquakes will spread, the vibrational spread. He's debunked you. Like, what? How do you explain the rate and location of where the expansion of these earthquakes goes to, and why does it always go equidistantly to every location?
All right, over to you, Matthew.
Okay, to answer that simple thing, I mean, that's funny you say it's debunked and game over, right? Time to go home, right?
Yep.
Hey, anyways, about the cartoon that Tony was showing, on the one side, it was the azimuthal equidistant map, which is useful because the distances are correct, okay? Now, the one you showed on the left side it's even worse than the globe. Like, if you look back on the graphic you showed, it's the southern azimuthal, which is totally wrong. None of those distances are correct, like in the northern hemisphere. So what you showed actually is so incorrect, it's worse than globe, okay? Now, I appreciate the cartoons, but there is that pesky ice wall. So you see how the cartoon energy was bouncing away? That's probably what it did. You know, I would love to go see it. I'm not rich enough to go pay 20 grand to go down there. But if I would like to. But maybe that's why the things bounced a certain way.
Maybe is not science, mate.
I love you, man. I love you, Tony.
Did you have anything to respond with there, TJump?
Yes,
We haven't heard from
I
you
have several things
much.
to respond to.
Or Tony,
saying
I guess.
maybe, or saying maybe, or possibly, or whatever. We've got a model. We've got a prediction. The model, we've got a model. We've got a prediction from that model, and we've got observations. The model and the observations match. That is validation of the model. You can't just say, well, maybe there exists a model. I don't have it, of course. I can't do any predictions, but maybe there's a model that matches up. That isn't science. That isn't even a basis for a scientific conclusion. Furthermore, your problem is even worse than that, because it turns out that there are seismic waves that go from the point of origin. I actually have another display. May I share my screen again?
Sure thing. Just let me know when you're ready.
Yep, just a second.
You are good to go.
Okay, here we're looking on the left. We've got an earthquake occurring at the top. We've got wave fronts. One's going out to the right, one's going out to the bottom. These are surface waves, so they travel around the circumference. So they get to the receiver, bang, that's the R1 wave. They continue going round. They go into the opposite hemisphere, and now they come back and they get to the receiver from the other direction. So if there's a receiver south of our current receiver, they come back, bang, that's R2. Now we get R3, which occurs very close after the first one. So these waves go round and round and round. If you've got a large enough, shallow enough earthquake, you'll get R4. This also happens with atmospheric pressure waves. For instance, the Tonga-Tapa eruption. This is the air pressure wave around it. You can see it spreading out from Tonga-Tapu. This is it 73 hours later after it's made multiple circuits of the, and this is observational data. You can hold your hands all you like, Matthew. This is real observational data, and I have visualized it for you. I have turned it into a graphic. Fine, but you don't get to pretend that the data doesn't exist.
May I respond?
Sure thing. Over to you.
Hey, Tony, man, your cartoons make me laugh more than Looney Tunes, dude.
All right.
Dude, I'll tell you this, okay? Really, may I have just a little time to speak and eloquate? Okay, computer programs don't mean anything. I'll tell you why. Someone probably make a computer program app on my phone. They could show me Pokemon in my front yard. With my eyes, I don't see I don't see Pikachu. I don't see Charmander or Ekans. But the phone, someone can show me on their device. Look at this proof. It's right there. Pikachu. And with my
you're
eyes,
just saying I'm lying to
with
you.
my God-given senses, the computer program can say anything it wants. The numbers, you could do any numbers you want. But it's like, dude, I love your cartoons. No, I love your cartoons. I love them.
You're saying that the data doesn't support these presentations.
I'm saying the data can obviously be manipulated. I mean,
obviously. How obviously? What is your evidence for supporting that claim?
Dude, you use the cartoon.
Claim. What's your evidence?
That's not evidence. If I show you a cartoon of Pikachu, that doesn't mean he's hanging out with me.
Oh my god! Oh my god! So wait,
no.
Hey, sorry to tell you, dude.
The
Don't get
cartoon,
hypnotized.
All right, to be fair,
TJump
said the least, so let's give the floor to TJump.
The cartoon is a picture to help you understand the argument. The cartoon is not relevant to the argument. So the cartoon shows a picture of a globe, and if there's an earthquake in one location, it'll spread out in a circle, right? That's just showing you that. If we expect this to happen, like if the world's a globe, and the globe predicts that certain cities are in certain locations on a globe model, then we can predict that if an earthquake happens here, it'll hit this city and this city and this city, the ones that are equidistant in every direction at the same time. That's all the cartoon is showing. And that has happened. That literally has happened. There was an earthquake in a location. We know the buildings got fallen. And we can test what time was the earthquake felt in a different city. And we can say, hey, there are people there. They have their phones. Like, hey, we were feeling the earthquake at this time. And we can say, oh, look, this is the time it happened. Here's how far away it is. Here's how the things spread. Now, if it's a globe, it's a ball, and the earthquakes happen all over the ball, everywhere, all over the ball, then we can measure how far away every city is. It's going to come a very, very strange shape. If the world's flat, there are earthquakes all over the ball, it'll be different. It'll be two different measurements with different numbers for when the earthquake reaches here and here and here and here for each different earthquake. It's triangulation, different numbers. Guess what? The globe numbers are right, Flurf numbers wrong. So the cartoon is just showing you the facts that have been proven not by a cartoon, but by the actual data we have of when the earthquake happens and when it gets to the other cities everywhere else around the world. So the cartoon isn't the evidence. That's just a picture to show you why you're dumb.
Okay.
I
Well,
think what
thank you. Uh,
Let's let Nathan in here right quick, Matthew. Just
I think
go ahead.
what Tony was showing there was the data collected from detectors of the seismic waves, and then
Cell
what he had
phones.
done is he graphed out where those detectors were and when they went off. And Anthony, I was going to ask you if you could, and I do believe we have the ability to detect these things, that is observational data, empirical data that they've measured. Would you be able to show like, I think it was around 190, the slide? If you could show around there. I was just curious about one thing, but I do think that you would get sort of like, if you dropped, because if I think that these waves would travel, we could kind of maybe try to use fluid dynamics to understand the properties of how these waves would move about. And I think
gotcha.
if you drop something into like a tub, like if you drop a ball into a tub of water, the waves that are going to go out closest to the sides would bounce and then go in a direction from there. And then the waves that are traveling out the furthest before they hit a wall, they're going to keep going until they hit their wall and then bounce from there. And so I'm curious here. This is on the right side here. What's that?
So, okay, except that we can prove that that isn't what's happening, right? So I've got another presentation. It should surprise no one.
All right, I'll give you 2 minutes on the floor there if you want to
okay.
show something up
So
there.
this-
But before we move on, Nathan, you had some closing thoughts on what we were just talking about?
Yeah, with where Anthony was showing there with the epicenter, I just wanted to make note that you had pointed out that there was a detection that was about on the opposite side of the flat Earth model, which would be further distance on a globe than points that are closer to. There weren't stars. If you were just looking at that map on your computer screen, on the top half of that map, there weren't any detections that were closer to where the epicenter is on the Antarctic coastline.
Well,
Just
let me
something.
show that again because you missed them.
All right. This is before you want to make the next point here, because we will eventually go into the Q&A, but if we want to bring up a new topic, that's totally fine by me. I don't mind if we go a little bit longer. That's cool.
Okay, so you're talking about here?
Yeah, so you could maybe run it forward a little further. Okay, so like say right there, like right around this area. So right now you're getting a reading that is around that 30 mark at the bottom there. That's on that ring. But now if you look straight up from the star, you have those two red dots on the coastline of Antarctica, but there is nothing kind of over towards that 150 area, which on a globe with Antarctica, the shape that it's claimed to be, that would be a closer location. They appear to spread out across. Yes, it would be a closer
location, but there's no seismometer there. So we are constrained by where the instruments are. So the fact that there's no circle there is an indicator that there's no instrument there, or at least no instrument that showed up in this data search. So it's not the fact that the wave didn't make it there, it's the fact that there's no instrument to detect it.
Okay.
So but we can refute the reflection argument. Just give me a moment. Need to find the right one.
A1. Are we moving into your next point now? I just had to check on the kid.
Yeah, I've just found it. Let me just go. Because we know actually what happens when a circular wave reflects off a circular obstruction. Let me just share once more.
Yeah, you're all ready. We're still ready to do the share.
Now you can find videos of this on YouTube, people with shadow tanks doing this experiment. The wave starts at the purple star. it spreads out, it hits the circular edge. Now, what happens when it reflects is this. It turns into a straight line and sweeps back along. So it doesn't go out across it doesn't go around the edge of the disc. And as I say, you can go onto YouTube, you can look up circular wave, circular obstruction, and you can see what happens for yourself. So no, your reflection mechanism does not make sense, and it does not explain the data.
So I would want to contest that what you're showing here is not an accurate representation of what an Earth would be, because this looks like a uniform, homogeneous, one material type of circle that the simulation is being run through, as opposed to has this model been done with various densities of medium within the ground, within the water? Have these wave motions
Yes.
been tracked in different density mediums?
Yes, there have been attempts to make flat Earth models, flat Earth seismic models that can work on a regional scale. They don't. I can show you the papers. I've got them here. Snokes and La 2001, Bai et al 2017 investigated on what length scale you actually need sphericity in order to match the observations, and the length scale is 150 to 180 kilometers. So after the wave has traveled 180 kilometers, there is no way to have a flat Earth model that matches the observations. Yes, we have looked at this, and if you're going to say that's wrong, you need to come up with one. So you need to come up with a model. This is what I said about earlier. If you can't lift the weight, you lose, right? We're in a weightlifting competition now, and you haven't even attempted to lift the weight. You haven't made an effort. And laughing and saying, oh, yeah, we can, is not going to cut it. They don't hand out Olympic medals for saying, yeah, sure, I could do that. No problem. Do it. And you'll find out that it's just not possible. My PhD was in adapting flat Earth seismic models to model viscoelastic relaxation. I know about flat Earth seismic models. I'm an expert in them. They don't work on long length scales. It's that simple. And you can dispute it. You can say you're wrong.
Did you just say you're a flat Earth doctor?
I said.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but what did you say? You have flat Earth seismology, and what did you do with it? You took it and put it in some kind of model that maybe put it onto a ball coordinate system? Did you say? I'm not understanding it.
Yeah, clearly. What I said was part of my PhD thesis was adapting a flat Earth seismic model into modeling viscoelastic deformation.
Viscoelastic deformation?
Yes. So deformation that has both a viscous and an elastic component, like a Maxwell solid.
So what's the purpose that what you studied was called flat Earth?
No,
I'm not getting it.
What I studied was high resolution modeling of glacial isostatic adjustment. So the way the Earth deforms under heavy weights like large ice sheets or large sediment loads or volcanoes.
Earth science.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
you had me going for a loop first. I thought you were saying like you take the flat Earth seismic data and you do something you change it somehow.
No, you don't. Yes.
Tony, I got just a quick question. When you're trying to make flat Earth models of seismic activity, are you using the data that we have according to like our current ability to record and detect things, and then we're taking those data sets and trying to put them onto a flat Earth model?
Yes.
So I would ask if there is any sort of transform going on with, well, let's say the military accuracy of data compared to what we get that might have gone through a transformation equation, Lorentz transformation or anything like that, that maybe that it would be difficult to put the data to to the slightly more precise or however much more accurate true representation of the Earth, because we are not given the actual distances or anything like that.
It's just a matter of time and location. That's all that we're getting here. All that we have is the time at which the wave function is a function of time at various locations. There's no
Okay, so they're going off of
transformation,
the distances that we have recorded.
well,
A
there's
is
no
such distance from B.
locations. We're going off the locations for the seismic instruments that we have.
Okay.
right.
And if I could real quick just address, and then I'll kick it back to you. But I do, so I think why there are not like flat Earth seismologists right now is because when you go through the academic schooling system, you are trained using globe models, globe numbers, and so the people who are going into these fields are taught certain methodologies and practices that involve using certain coordinates, certain measurements, and so I think that there's a reason that there are it's the lens that things go through.
Allow me to rephrase what you just said. There is a reason why everybody who has been highly trained in seismology thinks that the Earth is round. And that's because the data overwhelmingly supports it. That's the reason there are no flat Earth seismologists, is because the data doesn't support your position and you don't have any valid models that match our observational data. If you did, and this is the thing, if you want flat Earth to be taken seriously, you know that formula for the spherical distance that I showed you at the beginning of my presentation. Find me 2 points on Earth's surface where that's wrong, any two, because all of the pairs of points that we've applied it to, we get the right answer. So just show me where the spherical model is wrong. Show me how it's wrong, and I will start believing you. I will start taking you seriously. Okay, but that's what you've got to do. You can't just say, well, maybe there's some way that it can work. Show me, tell me, prove it to me, right? You've got to do this, and you are sort of on a hiding to nothing because none of you have the technical expertise to really process seismic data, and I understand that's an obstruction. But if that's the case, maybe listen to the people who do. It's just like flying a plane. You may not be able to fly a plane, but you trust a pilot to do it for you.
Yes, geodesics is y'all, what Tony does is very complicated mathematics. It's very involved, very intensive. I've heard that geodesics is the most complicated form of mathematics that academia offers to learn and study. So it's very high level, very in-depth mathematics, and I do agree with that. But I would think maybe that, so like the USGS uses a flat Earth model as their logo, and they are the ones that do have contained the most accurate data. And so I would think that what coordinate system we use, if we're looking at certain flat Earth models that are shown like the azimuthal equidistant map, though that is claimed to be latitudinally and longitudinally accurate, and so those coordinates would match up. And then if you ascribe those to a globe with that data set, you're going to be using real land-based coordinates that are latitude, longitude correct, and then you could apply them. The coordinates are there regardless if you want to say that they're sphere or triangle or square shape. The coordinates are latitude X, longitude Y, yeah. And then they apply it, do very complex math, and then get a data set.
May I share again, because I think you missed a point in my original presentation?
Sure, I've gotten used to these discussions involving a lot of screen sharing, so go for it, Tony.
Okay.
There's no worry at all.
Thank you for that. I'll just close that. That's my rotation presentation, which is a completely different thing, but okay. So if you remember my argument from down here, right? So the flat Earth model tells us that as you go south, the distance between points of a given longitude must increase. Okay, but here we have points that are in the northern hemisphere and at the same latitude, and points that are in the southern hemisphere and at the same latitude. And we can use the rail track length between them because the rail tracks are mostly east-west. So we can just divide those rail track lengths by the number of degrees longitude difference, and we can get the difference. And over here we see that in the northern hemisphere, the distance along this train track is longer per degree longitude than it is in the southern hemisphere. That's the opposite of what should be happening. A degree longitude in the northern hemisphere should be shorter than it is in the southern hemisphere. And as I said in my presentation, we can go even further south. Sorry, seem to have lost that. Element. But but if we go to Argentina, we can see that the unit size per degree longitude gets even shorter, down to 93.5 kilometers. So we see that degrees in longitude get narrower as you go to the pole. They don't get broader. So, you know, if we accept your map, if we accept what it says, which is that degrees longitude should be extending, we can prove that that's wrong. We've got railway lines. They can be measured. They can be walked. People travel between these cities. We know how far it is. They have GPS units on them. They record their positions. So, you know, this argument that you've got that the azimuthal equidistant northern hemisphere map works, it doesn't. It doesn't.
When you were showing that, just curious for clarification, when you were showing that the railroad tracks of the Southeast United States and Australia, Florida and Australia, the point of emphasis there was those points between those dots added onto those railways, I believe
Yes.
the white and red dots. So
Yes.
So that it was actually a wider span in the north. And I've heard Neil Tyson say that the Earth is actually bigger in the southern hemisphere. So wouldn't that conflate with the globe as well? And
No.
I would agree. If what's that?
No.
Okay.
This pear-shaped thing that you're all very keen on.
It's very slight.
It's a very modest influence. You would not see it. You know, you could look at the Earth. You would not see it if you were on a satellite. You need very precise measurements in order to detect it, and certainly more precise than a railway line. Okay, railway lines are good. I mean, they're a fixed physical thing whose length we can measure, but you know, they're not precise measurement devices.
And for the railway, is there the stretch of land that they took from Australia and the stretch of land that they took from Florida, if you looked at both of them side by side, they're going to have equal topography, amounts of variation in their elevation.
Yeah,
so those
roughly, yes.
Oh, okay. And I would, so then I would think if we are using especially like
but that actually argues against you, right? Okay, let's assume that there is lots of up and down, and let's assume that there is lots of sides and side. The track length is still less than the flat Earth estimate, right? So the flat Earth estimate is the flat Earth requirement there is much longer than what is observed. Okay, the spheroidal Earth estimate is always shorter than what's observed. Okay, which is consistent with there being topography and little wiggles side to side. But you need that line to be as straight as possible, and in some cases 3 times as long in order to match the observations, and that just isn't true.
So I'm curious because you're saying that the rail length distance isn't what it should be on a flat Earth, but I I have yet to, and I'll take note that what was shown there for the maps were flat map portrayals of these land masses. But I would think that there would be, because I don't have a 100% accurate map of all of the continental land masses of the flat Earth, to assume the shape of Australia, the width of it, or what dimensions are on land. All we would be able to tell is by the length of the railroad tracks themselves. That would be our only kind of tangible ruler, because anything else would kind of be like a rubber ruler.
So what you're saying is that it doesn't matter that the data disagrees with your model.
Wow.
Your model, the fact that the data contradicts your model doesn't matter. That's not a concern for you.
Well, I would not say that's my position. I would say if in Florida 1 and position 1 and Florida position 2 requires X amount of track to be laid down, no matter how much up and down or side to side meandering it has to go through to get there, I will claim it's going to take that much track to get there based on the path that they took to connect those two distances, and the amount of track would be the same in Australia.
And that distance is always consistent with the spherical distance formula. The amount of track you need, the amount of submarine cable you need, the amount of air fuel you need is always consistent with the spheroidal distance formula. And it's never, well, it's not often consistent with the flat Earth formula. It can be for some specific locations, but it's not where our formula works all the time. And if that's the case, that means that Earth has to be a sphere.
But didn't you say that the globe predictions tend to be under the actual amount of track used?
Yes, because the tracks aren't perfectly straight.
And yeah, and there's winding, and it's not taking the straightest route possible to get there.
Yeah, that's right. So the spheroidal Earth distance calculation is the shortest path possible. The train line isn't. But even allowing for that, you in the Australian example, you've got 1,280 kilometers of track, and the spheroidal distance estimate is 1,242 kilometers. So it's accurate to within within a few percent. So I'd say that that's pretty good validation for the spheroidal distance formula. And this is the thing that I'm trying to get. Whenever this is what I think the criteria should be, and I think that I agree with you guys that it's okay to ask questions. I agree with you guys that a lot of people think they know why the Earth is flat, well, why the Earth is spheroidal or flat, but they don't actually look at the data. But if we look at the data and compare the models impartially, the spheroidal model performs better, and that validates. Go on, Matt.
I already demonstrated with my opening statement that the globe theory is a contradiction, so therefore it cannot be a globe. Any computations you make, data, computer programs, yes, you could make many beautiful mathematical equations. You could give me the equations about like how much Santa Claus weighs and how much cookies and milk he gets on Christmas and how many eggs the Easter Bunny lays and what color the eggs are that the Easter Bunny lays.
How is it a contradiction?
The probability of the green.
How is it a contradiction?
Oh, the globe theory? Where would you like listen to my opening statement? Let's do it again.
Statement was garbage. Give me an example. How is it a contradiction?
In what way? In what way?
How is it a contradiction?
Okay, the globe theory suggests that the Earth actually curves.
How is that a contradiction?
Okay, let me illuminate this for you, TJump. I'm not trying to be weird, but if the theory is saying something's going to happen, and then we put that theory to test and we look in reality, and that falls apart, like when we don't see any curvature over 1 mile, 10 miles, 100 miles, and it's non-existent. Therefore, to assert that there is curvature on the Earth is a contradiction. Therefore, the first mandatory conditional for there to be a globe is not there. Therefore,
That's-
if the first mandatory conditional is not there, and we can prove that it's not there, that means it's a contradictory statement.
No, that is literally
I-
not what the word contradiction means.
Okay,
You need to Google
well-
what the word contradiction means.
Okay. We could bring up the definition and then like put it into practice and see if the definition of contradiction can be applied to curvature and globe theory.
All right, Dr. Tony, you had some thoughts there.
I did have some thoughts there. One, you didn't present any data. You didn't present any observational data in your opening, and you haven't presented any observational data in the entire discussion to date. So the claim that you did is not true. I maintain the position that you see exactly as much curvature as would be expected given atmospheric conditions and your position, always, under any circumstances. And your claim to the contrary requires demonstration, and you have failed to produce any observational evidence whatsoever supporting your point. So your claim to have contradicted the globe is simply an assertion and without evidence and can be dismissed instantly.
May I respond?
Yeah,
I gave
sure
all
thing.
kinds of info. I gave you info about how much curvature there should be over 1, 10, and 100 miles. I gave you the information about the alleged rotation of the Earth, which wasn't there. I gave you the information about the alleged tilt of the Earth, which wasn't there. I gave you information about the non-existent gravity. I gave you information about that. If you want observational data, my testimony is with my eyes at ground level, I could see for many, many, many miles. That's my personal testimonial observational data. When I go to a higher elevation, like a tall building or a hill, I can see there is no curvature. And I'm not talking about between 2 points. I'm talking about if I'm in the hills and I can see Santa Ana, Anaheim, Buena Park, right? And then I can see more than 20 miles, almost 25 miles away, and I can identify Long Beach with my eyes. And I can see there is no curvature, not just between 2 points, but over surface area. Now, I mean, I don't know if you know the locations I'm talking about. I don't know if you're familiar with Southern California, but it's like from Hollywood to Disneyland. It's flat, 100% flat.
Can you see radio waves?
Can I see them? No, I could hear them and detect them.
So based on your evidence, based on the fact that you can't see them, therefore radio waves don't exist.
Dude, we could prove radio waves exist.
We can prove the curvature.
You say
independent
that,
of your
but I
vision.
can't. I mean, I don't see it. I could hear
So-
radio.
But we just established that the fact that you don't see something isn't evidence it doesn't exist.
I could turn on my
We
radio
just
and hear it.
established that for radio waves.
All right.
We can establish it for X waves. We can establish it for atoms. Like, I listened to you prattle meaninglessly for about 5 minutes. So stop interrupting me. We just demonstrated that you not being able to see something is not evidence that it doesn't exist. So you claiming I don't see it, therefore it doesn't exist, is not evidence. It's not an argument.
Hey, dude, I told you I could listen to radio waves and then, yeah, they get blocked. Signals get blocked, so we could prove that radio waves exist.
Oh.
But I mean, you want to say curvature exists? That means, honestly, that is like you're lying to me saying we could see curvature.
Oh
And dude, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you, PhD Tony, there is no curvature on the Earth over 1 mile, 10 miles, 100 miles.
Must we listen
do
to
you
this for the
understand?
fifth
Wait,
time?
Let's,
sucker's
Must we
flat.
listen to this
Just
guy
one
just
second.
repeat himself?
let's just give for a second there, Tony. Just 1 second.
Okay.
TJump, you're making a lot of noises that should be reserved for the 18+ sections. So like, what's going on, buddy? What's you're making a lot of
stupid
groaning.
of everything Matthew is unable to understand breaks my brain. So Tony was making a very simple point. Matthew's argument was dumb, was just stupid, because he said, I don't see curvature, therefore there is no curvature. Then Tony made a very clear point. Do you see radio waves? Like, no. Matthew admitted he does not see radio waves. So if Matthew's first argument actually worked, then by virtue of the fact he can't see it, it must not exist. So since he can't see radio waves, they must not exist. Since that argument fails in the case of radio waves, even if you can't see them, they might still be there. Then it also fails in the case of the curvature. Even if you don't see it, it could still be there, which debunks his own argument. That was the full point of Tony's argument, and Matthew just completely did not understand that. And it was so simple. It's so simple.
I don't
So
think we're going to forget
maybe-
this one, Matthew. Let's just let Nathan in right quick.
Can
I don't think you'll
if I
forget,
could,
though.
if I can jump in here real
I'm on
quick
track,
and
though.
Go ahead.
if
I'm giving the floor to Nathan.
if I,
Go
if I
ahead.
could share my screen here real quick.
Go ahead.
So what I have here, so let's take this claim of and I'll try to be as clear as I can with this. So let's take this claim of, is there curvature that we can detect? Say I'm skeptical that there's curvature. So we can look at something like bottom-up disappearance, and we could say that that is more inferential towards there being curvature, because something would go down a physical dip, and then only part of it would be visible because of the curvature. So so if we look here, this is on so now a flat surface needs to be able to show what looks like bottom-up disappearance, what looks like curvature, using realistic natural variables that we would expect to find if we were measuring for them out in the real world, in the shared reality. So this here is a known flat surface, and using temperature variation, you'll watch as the bottom of taller objects, and then things that are shorter inherently, are all removed because of this controlled variable. And so this is a recreation of what should support a globe, but it's recreated on a known flat surface. So now we can look out, because this is what looks like a curved observation in reality. Now we can look to what would be something that would show a flat observation of reality, which would be these lights, which are all 1 foot high and observed from a viewer height of under 1 foot. They're 5, 6, 7, 8 miles away, and they appear in a line. So if you graph them out, so this looks like flat. So now the globe, which is claiming contour, has to be able to recreate a demonstration where we can have realistic variables. If you want to call it refraction, take any refraction you want, control it for a variable in a scaled experiment, and then repeat it and show to scale that a curvature rate would be able to look flat, because these are linear space lights that are exponentially curving further than each one than the last. So you would need to show that this can appear on a known curved surface to scale with the controlled variables, and it has yet to be done. I've tried asking several a smorgasbord of times to a plethora of people, and I've yet to see this recreated on a known curved surface. That's
share there.
May I have one last thing before I go, or if we go to the next topic? I just want to say about, yeah, we can't see radio waves, but we can know they exist by, sending them and receiving them. My point about the curvature is, like, how would we determine there is curvature if it was not seeing and recognizing locations at further distances?
I'm glad you answered.
Just 1 second there, Tony. Just 1 second, Tony. I'll
over
give you 1 full minute after he's finished his point here. Go ahead, Matthew.
But that was just my point, is that, yeah, we can detect and send radio waves, and then the curvature, the best way I could think of that's actually real, not a computer program or a cartoon, is to identify locations at long distances. That was my point earlier about naming all those cities that I have recorded. I should have had a bunch of things. You guys check out my YouTube channel, right? But yeah, it's no curvature. We don't see it.
All right.
Say there is, it's a lie. To say there is.
Okay, we're gonna give the floor over to Tony here. Just
okay.
As I
that's
said,
the third time. That's the third time in this debate you've just called me a liar. Please don't do that. The other point I would raise is, why can't I see Everest? If the Earth is flat, Everest is 10 kilometers tall. Why the hell can't I see it? You keep on saying there's no evidence of curve. The fact that I can't see Everest is evidence of a curve. the fact that radars have horizons is evidence of a curve. If the Earth was flat, radars wouldn't have horizons. There is the fact that a degree of longitude covers different distances at different distances from the equator, and that it decreases as you move towards the poles, is evidence of curvature. All of this stuff is evidence of curvature. To claim that there's no evidence of curvature is nonsense.
That was perfect. That was actually a perfect minute. My timer was just going off, Tony, so that was like your internal timer is amazing. Go ahead, Matthew.
Okay, Nathan, mind if I answer why we can't see Everest from where we are? Okay, let me break this down for you, PhD, Tony. There is such a thing as visibility. You could check it, your weather app or whatever, and let me give you like personal, observational, testimonial information, okay? There's a mountain range. It's like it's like maybe 30 miles to the north of me. Sometimes I can see it. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes the blue sky is in front of the mountains. That's it. That's why we can't see Everest. We can't see forever.
So sometimes you can see Everest and sometimes you can't?
No, my point is if there's mountains that are like kind of close to me, and there's days when they disappear, like visibility is a thing. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not trying to act weird.
Why can't I see Mount Everest? You can
are you paying attention to what I just answered your question? I gave you
all right, hold on 1 second. I'll give you 10 seconds, Matthew, to clarify your question, and then Tony, the floor is yours.
Yeah, to clarify, we can't see forever. We cannot see forever. The sky becomes opaque at a certain distance. Visibility is a thing. And like I just said, there's close by mountains that sometimes the blue sky is in front of, and I cannot see.
All right,
that's
over you, Tony.
Okay, even if I accept this argument, if I fly up into a plane where there is no pollution, where I'm above the cloud and where I'm above mist, I should be able to see Everest. The claim that pollution or clouds or smog or some other obstruction obstructs Everest is demonstrably false. If that were the case, we'd see it as soon as we got into a plane and got to 10,000 meters. We don't see that. The idea that you can only see a finite distance is false. You need to prove that. You're claiming that, and you're claiming that without any substantiation whatsoever. Where is your evidence that we can only see so far?
I just gave you my personal testimonial evidence.
I'm still talking, sir.
Ask me a question.
We can see stars that are a long way away
10 seconds
without obstruction.
Oh, so sorry. I was just saying you got another 10 seconds there before Matthew injects. So go ahead there, Matthew. And
I just want to say, no matter how high you go up, there's going to be like gas and air. Like there's going to be like oxygen. You keep going up. There's going to be all kinds of atmospheric stuff going on. And not only is there that, but I don't mean to sound weird, PhD Tony, but when things are far away, they look small. Have you figured that out into your flat Earth trash talk? All right. That when things are far away, they're going to look small. Like if I'm 100 feet away from you, dude, do you think I'm going to be 6'3"? If I'm 100 feet away from you, I'm going to look like an inch tall. Now, how big do you think Mount Everest should be if it's, like 10,000 miles away from you? Do you think it's going to be its maximum height? No, dude, I'm sorry to tell you, like,
it's going to be taller than anything between it and me. There's nothing obstructing it. And especially if I'm at 10,000 meters, there's nothing obstructing it. There's nothing in the way. You'll claim that oxygen can obstruct vision. Please demonstrate it. Where's your evidence?
Before you guys start responding, Nathan, I will cede you the floor, but I just want to...
Look it. Hold on 1 second, y'all.
Hold on,
1
second there, guys. All right, so I'm just got you on mute there, Matthew. Before we carry into this, I do want to check with you guys. We've been going almost for It's an hour and 50 minutes now that I've had you. I do want to check to make sure that none of you have any time constraints, because I have no problem to let you guys continue with this discussion. But we've got 4 people here, everyone. If you're hanging out in the live chat, hit the like button. You know, this is a lot of discussion going around and a lot of effort getting put in here by the speakers. So does anybody have any time constraints? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yes, I need to go to bed.
You need to go to bed? All right. Well, you go to bed whenever you need to go to bed, and I will adjust for that. So just let me know. No problem. So I'll let you guys carry on with what you were discussing. I did just want to check in there. So no worries. We're going to keep tonight really chill. If you need to drop out, just send a message in the Zoom chat and carry on, fellas.
Yeah, and if there are, I don't know if there's any questions specifically for Tom or anything like that, but if there is and everything, and that you want to ask his, and then we could go back to discussion or anything like that. But I would want to say, Tony, I'd like you to consider, if you're looking at an object like Mount Everest, and it would be taller as far as its true shape and size and height than anything in between you and it. But if you have Everest very far away, it's going to have angular shrink. It's going to look small. And so you can have an object that's closer to you. You could have a mountain before that appears bigger because of its closer position to your eye. So your eye's angular resolution will resolve it bigger. And then there is also, if you go up in elevation and you're looking out, if you start to look down towards and tilt down towards what you're looking at, a small mountain that will appear smaller, you're going to look back down into those things like debris that can block your vision. Water vapor causes magnification, which will distort things. There's a vanishing point because we have the ground going up and the sky going down. And so they're competing for visual data in our eye, what our eye can take in. And so when the ground light has met the competition line of the ground light, when the skylight and the ground light have met each other's competition line, they have competed to each other to the furthest resolution we can see distance wise, and anything beyond that would be vanished, because you would only going up in elevation, you would push that back. And if we could go high enough up, we would be able to see Everest, I'm sure, from a high enough elevation, but we can't get there. Even NASA and all of them say we can't get past low Earth orbit, and all of those things are a problem to get high enough up. So you run into issues with that, which it supports an enclosed system. But if it's free space above us in outer space, we should get high enough up to just take a picture of the Earth and settle the thing, the whole discussion. But we can't.
Okay.
So anyway, there are multiple variables factored into why Everest would be hidden.
Okay, can you provide a single academic reference for anything that you just described? Or is it just garbled nonsense that you've heard from other flat earthers that you're reciting here as though it's meaningful?
No,
have you personally studied optics?
I've done just a little bit of stuff with like organic chemistry and refraction labs. But as far as like the magnification of the atmosphere, I haven't I don't think technically gotten into that. But there are like when they were talking about the horizon or the skyline that was seen from Michigan of Chicago, the weatherman had mentioned that it was a superior mirage, and then they had gotten scientists who are globe tenants. They had said that the atmosphere does act like a lens because of the water vapor. And so it does cause things that are closer to you to bloom up in your vision and to look bigger. And so if something is looking bigger of your angular resolution, it's going to crowd out other things. And so that also will further restrict what you're able to take in through your...
Okay, the bit about crowding out, I need a reference for. Show me the textbook or the scientific paper where this crowding out phenomenon is discussed and described.
Could I give you a demonstration?
No, I want a scientific paper describing and enumerating this option, because what you're describing is actually not physical reality.
Okay, I don't think I'll be able to meet that request right now because I don't have a paper on that specific topic.
Okay, my suggestion to you is that you should actually, because I hear claims like this a lot, And they're generally made by flat earthers who actually don't have any formal training in optics and don't understand what they're talking about. And they might be well advised to actually get some training in some physics.
Okay.
I agree, and I do think that the people who had mentioned that water acts like a lens in the atmosphere and causes magnification, and causes optical phenomena, and mirages and illusions. I believe they had some form of educational background.
Yes, and did they tell you how often that happens? Is it a common thing or is it an uncommon thing?
It varies by the humidity in the air, the temperature.
Yes, I know what
weather-dependent.
the functional variables are. I'm asking if it happens a lot or if it happens rarely. If it was on the news, that is because it doesn't happen very often. So unusual conditions led to this phenomenon being observable on this particular day, and they got experts in to explain why it happened. That does not mean that you can invoke it to explain commonplace observations, because it's a very unusual phenomenon, and I know exactly how it arises, but it's not a commonplace event. And so you appealing to it as though it can explain all of our observations all the time is not valid. Do you understand that?
I understand, but I think it is valid because it's understood that there are multiple conditions that determine how far we can see on any given day under any given set of conditions. And so let's say if we're in Michigan, that the furthest we're allowed to see with the clearest conditions that allow us to see the furthest are something that allows us to see the Chicago skyline, which should be hidden by a pretty substantial amount of curve. But I would wager that on average, the weather of the area would tend to put the visibility termination line somewhere between Michigan and the water, so that it actually prevents you from seeing Chicago. And even if you have fog around you, you're going to have your field of view limited to like 30, 40 feet. So I would say it's somewhere between those events that keep it very close and near and very distant. And most of the time, the conditions will put you 5 miles out or 10 or 20 miles out. But then that would, if we want to take that to the Eratosthenes thing, or not the Eratosthenes thing, but the boats going over the horizon at 3 miles, how do we determine on what day, on what conditions, the actual limit of how far away we're seeing something go over it? The distance to how far out we can see changes, so that our value would change. And
Okay.
so I think that
Can you Google visible termination line for me, because you used that term as though it was technical jargon? Can you Google that for me and see how meaningless it is? Because it doesn't refer to anything that is real.
And while you do that, I'll just remind everybody that approximately, I'm going to say if you guys got more thoughts to get out, that's all cool. But approximately 5 to 10 minutes, we should start engaging with the audience a bit with the
I just
Q&A.
need to duck off to go to the bathroom. Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine. Yeah, if you need to use the washroom. TJump, you were shaking your head earlier. When you were listening to some of what Nathan was saying. Did you have any thoughts over there?
I think it would be faster to list the coherent things he said than the stupid things.
All right, Matthew, you're making faces over there. We have to. Tony is not here to engage right now, so I know that you just said a big part of your piece there, Nathan. So I'll cede the floor over to you, Matthew, and see if we can get some engagement back and forth between you and TJump while we wait for Tony. And like I said, everybody, get your super chats in. They'll be priority read to all the debaters here. So go ahead, Matthew.
Oh, well,
Hey,
since the dude
Matt,
is oh, sorry.
could I just have like 10 seconds to explain why I use the term like visual termination line?
Okay, 10 seconds, sure.
So I use that word just to try to convey a meaning of us having a vanishing point due to our perspective of the ground and sky colliding. So I was just trying to use terminology that would convey an image to be able to follow along. But there might be a different technicality for the word or anything like that. But I do apologize
to me,
the wording.
To me, it sounded like you're appealing to something that is absolutely not demonstrated to exist, to explain something that you can't demonstrate using physics. That's what it sounded like to me.
Okay. Any
And,
thoughts
and-
there?
and I would,
Sorry. Go ahead.
and actually, I'd like to say something else. This is why I don't like using optical evidence. This is why I prefer using length scales, submarine cables, flight paths, navigation, earthquakes, atmospheric waves, because whenever you get into these discussions about what you should or shouldn't see, it always boils down to fairy tales about optics being different from we understand it to be. The limit of refraction or Rayleigh's criterion or whatever magical phenomenon people want to appeal to. And it's why I prefer to stick away from these blurry out of focus photos and actually stick with something that is measurable and repeatable.
All right.
That was fascinating.
I think this might be a good time,
Agreed.
everybody, to move into our Q&A. We got lots of questions that are coming in, and if you're hanging out in the live chat right now and you want your question to be asked, get it in there as a super chat, and that will ensure that we read it before the end of our debate. So let's get into it, everybody, and once again, smash that like button as if it owes you money. Ambient guitar music says, question for TJump. Why does Polaris never move?
You mean in the sky? It does. It's not completely stable.
Any other thoughts on the panel there, or do we want to move on?
Yeah, we've got abundant observational evidence that it moves. We've got abundant observational evidence for precession at the equinoxes. The equinoxes are observed to precess by about 50 arc seconds every year. So the claim that the stars are stationary is just a result of not actually looking with sufficient precision at the data sets involved.
All right, let's carry on. Unless you got any thoughts on the other side.
Matt, can I take this?
Yeah,
one?
go for it. Because I was listening, but you could go for it.
Okay, so
Sure
with Polaris, the talk about the precession of the axis is that you have like this arc in the sky that gets traced, and the Earth over 26,000 years is claimed to make a 360-degree circle. And so Polaris, we'll say, has been the pole star for about 500 years, which would be about, we'll just say it's about 7 degrees of arc in that sky. So it took 500 years to get that 7 degrees, and the claim is that only within the last, or in the next 100 years, will we approach the pinnacle where Polaris is the most aligned with the axis of our rotation. So we're not even at the peak of Polaris being the pole star. So that means in 500 years, it covered 6.99 degrees of the arc swing. And then in the last 100 years, it's going to cover a very small portion of the sky and aligning itself. So that would turn this arc that casts over 2,600 years, and it would essentially make a sky path that looks something like this, where this part here is taking a lot of time, and this narrowing here, and then this can get covered. This swath can get covered very quickly, but it's claimed to be a gradual swinging of the arc through the sky.
Do you know what, according to the zodiac, according to astrology, what star sign should you see at dawn on the spring equinox?
I don't follow star signs.
Okay, so it would be it would be Aries is supposed to be there. But if you get up in the morning and you actually have a look, you won't see Aries, because Aries isn't there. It's Pisces, because the stars have changed because of precession since the zodiac was developed. Also, if you bother to get up and actually observe stars rather than opining about them without any observational evidence, you will notice that Scorpio is barely in the zodiacal belt anymore. Its place has been largely taken by the constellation of Eucus. So the claim that there is no precession is falsified instantly by the observed precession of the zodiac since Hipparchus compiled his star charts, and since the Chaldeans compiled their star charts before him.
I would refute that with the Chaldeans being a flat Earth culture, and that there are cycles to the sky and cycles within those cycles. And so some cycles will take longer because the sun's grand hierarchy of cycles takes a different time than the stars. Over time, we could expect that the sun will go through different zodiac signs as
So you
as we
do
go through
concede that the
year.
zodiac does change, and that the
Mhm.
and that the position of stars changes.
Hey, I would throw it out there that no, Polaris is not moving because there's megalithic structures that line up with Orion. And if the stars were tilting, or if some other bigger, like 30,000 year cycle is taking place, that would not align perfectly with the pyramids. And Polaris would not be exactly above the North Pole. And to answer further questions about Polaris, it looks like it's turning. It's in one spot turning on. I think it's the 1 degree. I'm not sure how to describe it. It's like it's just turning in its spot. It's not moving anywhere. You know, I don't believe that stuff where they say like it's going to shift to a different pole star, because if it's not moving now, and it wasn't moving 10 years ago, and it wasn't some other place 100 years ago, probably like in a year and in 10 years and 100 years from now, probably going to still be in the same place. Hopefully we're all alive to, know, right? Hope we all live long time to see that pole star stay put for another couple thousand years.
So you don't care what the high precision observational data is, you're just not going to believe it.
No, I look at the stars. I track what's going on. I compare it to what I've seen throughout my life, and I see that there's no tilt, which should happen every year. I mean, tilt, that's not something that would take 100 years to see if it happens or not. Allegedly, tilt is the reason we have seasons on the globe Earth. But the sky is not tilting.
Your inability to see tilt is largely a product of your inability to properly understand how it would be detected. But the tilt that we see is the angle between the plane of the ecliptic and the celestial equator. Are you claiming that the sun is always over the equator?
No, I'm claiming that
so the path of the sun is at an angle to the equator, right?
Please don't interrupt me, PhD Tony.
I asked you a yes or no question.
No, what I'm saying is
that the tilt we see
is non-existent. What was the question again? Because that's what I mean.
We can. This is the first question, guys. So keep those questions coming in. Go ahead, Tony.
What
is the plane followed by the sun always over the equator?
Is the plane followed by the sun always above the equator? You mean the path the sun takes? Are you talking about the Tropic of Cancer? Yes.
No.
In summer, the summer solstice, that's when it's like at the edge of the Tropic of Cancer. Then when it's winter,
is the Tropic of Cancer the equator?
Please don't interrupt me. When the sun's
the Tropic of Cancer the equator?
It's called the Tropic of Capricorn. That's when we get the winter, because the sun, the path,
10 seconds.
The path of the sun expands and contracts throughout the year. That's how we have seasons. There is no tilt.
Okay, Tony asked a clarifying. Hold on there, Nathan. Tony asked a clarifying question. Over to you, Tony.
Okay, so the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer are not the equator. Therefore, the sun is not always over the equator, right? That was my question. Is the sun always over the equator?
You're right.
No,
the sun is not always over the equator. You're right.
Okay, so the angle that the path of the sun makes with the equator is the ecliptic angle. That's the obliquity. Saying that the obliquity is 0 would require that the sun is over the equator. So you're saying that something that we observe isn't real.
No, I'm saying the globe theory is lying about what's happening in reality. I'm saying,
How so?
Like you just said, I mean, what do you mean about the sun? You just said you thought the sun would always be over the equator. No. I just explained to you. The sun has a path over the earth, right? The sun has a path over the earth. It goes from the Tropic of Cancer in the summer. Then it goes over the equator, and then it goes down to the Tropic of Capricorn, giving us winter. Then
Look,
it comes
Ryan,
back. Then
I'm
it comes
going to
back.
ask
It
that he be
contracts,
cut off here because
and
he's lying
expands.
about what I said.
No, I'm not. I'm
Okay.
listening to you, man.
I know you
Love you,
want to.
Tony. I love you.
All right, I know you want to jump in here and there, Nathan, but let's move on to the next question there, guys, because we got lots of questions, and I'm sure eventually we'll come full circle. We always do. Malavaya, glad to see you're hanging out there, buddy. You know, a big critic of mine originally, but we grew to love each other, and I really appreciate. He's an honest guy, so that's cool. Personal incredulity, poisoning the well, ad hom. How many more fallacies this dude gonna unleash in his opening? Oh, he's still spicy. So Malavaya, I think he. I'm not sure he's coming after there. So he says, poisoning the well, ad hom. How many more fallacies is this guy going to unleash in his opening? Who do we think that's for? Malavaya, you didn't really specify. Let's continue on. Malavaya goes on to clarify, $5. Thank you so much, Malavaya. And keep the super chats coming in, guys. We really appreciate this to carry the conversation forward and get those questions in. Tectonic plates cannot work on a flat Earth. Earthquakes cannot work on a flat Earth because flat Earth being caused by tectonic plates. Stop your nonsense already. Okay, I think that clarifies the first question. So he accused you guys of poisoning the well, and then is saying that your explanation for the tectonic plates is not accurate. So, thoughts on that there, Nathan and Matthew?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll just real quick throw this out, and then so with the terminology itself, plate, it's kind of like airplane. A plate itself is a flat surface. There are plateaus, abyssal plains. There are these flat features, flat referenced features throughout tectonics. They are something in the ground. There are structures, and if there's a jostling of them, maybe if something hits it from this side and then causes it to wiggle, you're going to measure something on the other side of the plate, and that could send something through. Yeah, I think that the term plate itself, it's a piecing together of these sheets as far as at a certain elevation, and they're moving around depending on how much oil lubricant we take out from within the earth and everything.
Good one. May I add just a little bit? Okay, I live in Southern California.
Yeah,
we got earthquakes all the time. Okay, all the time. The street setup, it's perfectly like north, south, east, west. If you look on a map of like where I live, they're all lined up north, south, east, west. So if there was plate tectonics shifting around, there would not be that alignment. And I would just tell you guys, yeah, look at my area. It's like Fullerton, Anaheim, Buena Park. The streets are all like perfectly like miles. They're like squares, and they align north, south, east, west. So that's proof that there's no plate tectonic shifting going on. There are earthquakes. There's stuff happening beneath us. There's geothermal activity, like what makes lava and all that. I mean, I have my own personal opinion that beneath us is hell. So there could be all kinds of weird stuff going on below, but rightly so above us. If there's hell beneath us, that means heaven's above us. There's all kinds of like electricity going on in the sky, and it's amazing. It's beautiful what the Creator did and where He put us. Thanks, God.
And with earthquakes
cannot-
too, there are events and things that happen at faults and where plates meet and merge. There might be, I think it's like subduction and things that can happen, convection and everything that can happen with those plates and how they interact with each other at those faults.
All right, over to you, Tony.
May I say something here?
Yeah, over to you.
Okay, the naivety of the discussion was transparent in the sense that you have not done any calculations, for instance, of how much material is being produced at the mid-ocean ridges or how much material is being subducted. We have done those calculations based on the length of those features on a globe Earth, and they match. So as much material is being produced as it is being subducted, which leads to equilibrium in the geometry of the plates. The claim that plates do not slide past one another, as was adduced just a little while ago, I'd like to share my screen again.
I don't think Ryan is there right now, or is he?
Just
Okay.
play it. Let's watch it.
Yeah.
We're cordial.
Just a second. This is an image taken from the Alaska earthquake of 1969, where a school was ripped in half.
Landslide?
Nope, an earthquake.
Yeah, it looks like it just slid.
It
The whole Earth.
yes,
If
but
the
it
Earth
was
ripped open,
yes, but it was actually
dude,
an
where's the
earthquake.
gorge where the Earth ripped
It-
open? That looks like a landslide. Cool
Yes,
pick, though.
it said that it was an earthquake. You can
Yeah,
look
so
up the Anchorage earthquake.
there's earthquakes. I agree with you 100%.
Stop interrupting.
Sorry. Apologies. Love you.
Okay, so it doesn't matter what data you see, you're always going to explain it away as somehow fake, or somehow it's not what it appears to be, or somehow magically the Earth is flat regardless of what you see.
Dude, are
I
you telling me
find
that picture is your proof for plate tectonic shift? Is like a building that looks like there was an earthquake and a landslide?
it looks like it was ripped in half by motion of the
It's
plate.
good.
We have
Landslide.
we have thousands of examples of faults, shear faults, that have ripped laterally, and then one of them has moved vertically. We've got
But
lots
that doesn't
and
mean the
lots of
whole Earth
faults.
is that. There could be things happening, yes.
But your claim was that nobody claims that these things happen everywhere. They happen at plate boundaries. So
Yeah,
the
my
fact that they
claim is
happen
that-
around plate boundaries.
Yeah, my claim is I live in an area where there's earthquakes all the time.
And
you
so
know
you're
what
an
we
expert
have?
on earthquakes.
You know what we have
Was
mudslides.
that school at a plate boundary? Just
Yes.
that
All
was
right.
on a plate boundary. Okay.
Yes.
One thing I will say and I think it's very important to note this, I think it is worth noting that we do need more people going to school for trades and learning how to make infrastructure that can withstand earthquakes. I think that would be good for
That's-
everybody.
Oh, God.
So that's
just
easier
throwing
said
that out
than
there.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
easier said than done for shallow earthquakes. So
Okay.
in Japan, there's a lot of work that's been done on earthquake proofing buildings and sky rises, but they can do that because the earthquakes are reasonably deep. Whereas along the coast of Alaska and along the coast of California, they've got very shallow events, and there's a lot more vertical earth motion because they're not having to lift up as much earth. But the idea that because you live in California,
10
that
seconds,
makes you
we'll move
more
on.
of an expert on earthquakes than seismologists and geophysicists is absolute nonsense. No, it's drivel. Don't allow him to respond to that. It's fatuous gibberish.
Well, we are going to have to move on, everybody, because we have all kinds of questions coming in. So, Meridon says, if it is true that the Earth is flat, then why is it the case that we know for a fact items weigh about 1% less at the equator compared to the poles?
So the Elias effect shows that there is an influence of the sky above us on matter on this Earth. If you look at how pendulums are during an eclipse, which should have no bearing on what if a pendulum, a Foucault pendulum, for example, is exclusive, only motion derived from that is due to the supposed rotation of the Earth. The aligning of celestial bodies that has a negligible amount of gravitational influence, especially considering the results that are get during the Elias effect, you can get pendulums that will swing differently. And so now if you look at objects that were weighing on the Earth, if you look up at the sky and look at a time lapse, you're going to see stars that are north or south of the equator appear to turn almost into a point because they're getting smaller and smaller, the circles. So you're getting more angular turn over less distance. So there's going to be more angular motion imparted into objects, or influence imparted into objects. Whereas if you're at the equator, it's going to go straight as it influences and imparts into the object. And so that can fluctuate. If you have something in a fluid, it can weigh differently depending on how it's traveling and the medium that it's in and everything. So the direction of the flow of the fluid flow could alter
Can I ask,
shift.
where is your observational evidence?
When
Can you present any observational evidence for this?
So they weigh objects and they weigh differently depending on where they're weighed, and then we can tell that there is an influence of phenomena in the sky that affects how things behave on the Earth because of
You're
the
not
Elias effect.
doing what I asked for. I asked for evidence, and you're just repeating yourself. What is your evidence for what you are claiming?
All right, last 20 seconds there for you, Nathan. Let's carry on with the questions.
Yeah, so if I am going to if I put water a scale or something that can detect pressure in water and I push straight at it, it's gonna get more of a more blunt pressure reading than if something is arcing across it. It's gonna have less direct initial impact, and then the reading difference would the difference in readings would be there because you have a whole force hitting something at once, or the very tip of an arc, and then more would crash into it as the rest of the arc catches up to hitting that pressure plate.
All right, that was for
Was that evidence?
So that one
Explanation.
That one was for Nathan and Matthew, so we're going to carry on from there. Kango44, thank you so much for hanging out in the live chat and your super chats. We appreciate everybody who has already asked their questions. Let's carry on. Mr. Beast spent 50 hours in Antarctica and filmed the 24-hour sun. He was not stopped by the army. He also did not see a huge ice wall. Matthew is having some thoughts there. Go ahead, Matthew.
So, okay, really quick. Let me get this one, Nathan, about the 24-hour sun video. Okay, in Antarctica, I saw it, right? I saw a couple of them that did look like total fake CGI. Honest, I'll say it. The shadows weren't moving. Okay, but I saw one, and I thought to myself, what if this is just the North Pole and they just flipped it, like mirrored it? So I'm like, yeah, that obviously that's one thing, but in today's day and age, listen, they can make realistic videos of Taylor Swift performing fellatio on President Trump. So, I mean, come on.
They did
right?
what?
Let's all go down. Open up Antarctica. Let's go. Let's all go. Let's get those ships.
It's already
Let's all have
open.
fun.
That's how Mr. Beast got there. It's open. Anybody can go there.
They don't
Anybody
trust
can go buy a
Mr.
ticket.
Beast. Hey, you know what the number of the Beast is? TJump?
Any person can go there.
Six.
That's not a real number.
As
That's
we confirmed, it is a great Iron Maiden album. Let's continue on to the next question that Kango asked. Kango44. In a flat Earth, Antarctica goes all the way around the disk. So from anywhere on Earth, you could travel in any direction, and get there. Why would you have to travel south to get to Antarctica?
So when you're considering the way that you would travel, like as far as cardinal directions go on a flat Earth, you have to consider what the model is claiming. So if you look at a flat Earth map like what Matthew is showing here, north, if you were looking at a compass, which compasses always point to north, despite there supposing to be a south pole, it will point north, and then south is anything directly 180 degrees diametrically opposed to north. So that would mean if you have a compass in your hand and it's pointing to the north, you are going to turn 180 degrees so that the compass is pointing directly at you, and you travel in that direction. You will reach Antarctica because both models claim, according to our magnetic declination and the way that our compasses work and that we navigate, south is away from north on both models. Circumnavigation is east and west, and that's possible. You make circles on the above the circle of a flat Earth or around the circle of a sphere Earth, but east to west circumnavigation is the only way. And on both models, they claim the same thing. North is towards the way the compass points, and if you go 180 degrees, you're south.
All right, I think we can move on from there if that's all right with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, no objections over here on the panel.
Well, we can have compasses that actually do point to the South Pole. We can do that.
Actually, I was going to mention that in the southern hemisphere, our compasses use the southern magnetic pole to point, but they're just going to say that that's bullshit and not agree. So what's the point? Let's move on.
Okay. Oh, let's
Is that factoring in declination? I'll look into that. I've not heard that, but that's not having declination make it appear to point at a south pole. That's actual. It's homed in on a magnetic south pole. Okay.
All right. Let us do carry on, because we do have quite a few questions to get through. Dr. Dino says, geology is great for showing the Earth is a globe. Earthquakes release P and S waves. P waves go through liquids, S don't. Measuring them lets us see an outline of the liquid outer core. The way the P waves refract through the core shows us there's a solid core at the center. Geo rules. Thank you, Dr. Dino. Love you, buddy. Thoughts panel.
Is
Yeah,
that
so that's something that I didn't dwell on in my presentation, but there's a thing called the P wave shadow zone, where the P waves slow down. So that if you remember that presentation I was showing, can I show it again, or am I pushing the friendship?
Well, I was going to say, it's quite a bit of screen sharing, but yeah, if you can keep it to like 30 seconds, that's cool. Let's see what you got there.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
No
okay.
problems. Don't worry.
All right. So this is the area. So
There we go.
okay. Sorry, this is the wrong presentation, but whatever. As you converge in, the P waves slow down, and so you get this area here at about 1200 seconds, so 20 minutes afterwards. You can see that there are no blue lines, no blue circles, and it keeps on staying that way for a while. The P waves don't arrive. That P wave and then they start arriving after a while. That is because P waves travel more slowly through fluid than they do through everything else. So here you're finally getting the waves coming through the liquid core. So the fact that this P wave shadow zone, which always occurs at the same distance from whichever earthquake you've got, is always caused by. So it tells us. Again, as TJump was saying, we've got thousands and thousands of earthquakes. We've got thousands and thousands of observations. They all behave like this. They've all got this P wave shadows.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Any other thoughts there? If we can keep it to 30 seconds before we move on to the next question. Go ahead.
Just really
Matthew.
quick, I thought they're all talking about the core of the Earth. It's like, oh, it's solid. No, it's liquid. It's like, how can we get down there and actually verify these fairy tale stories about what's going on so far down there? What is it that scientists can make all these guesses and we just take it as the truth? And people can't get down there to the core of the Earth, thousands of miles. Guesses, assumptions, fairy tales.
It's called
That's it.
basic inferences.
Matthew, have you ever had a child?
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay. Are you aware of the concept of ultrasound on pregnant women?
Yeah, you're talking about when they put the
Okay,
device
that's exactly the same technology,
right
mate.
to the world,
It's exactly
right?
the same technology. It's
That's not
sound waves
thousands of miles
traveling
away.
through a body.
Oh my God.
Dude,
Okay.
dude, that's a bad example because the baby is right there, not thousands of miles away.
If
It's
the
the
radio
same
waves work at
technology,
one
Matthew.
inch,
All right, guys, hold on.
Works exactly the
Let's
same way.
let T jump in because he hasn't, like I said, he's not had much of the floor here. So T jump, go ahead.
so if waves can be used to measure thing at 1 inch, they can also work at a mile and 10 miles. The same science works at every distance. That's why we can see like stars and stuff. Waves,
Well, we
like
can
light
see
waves.
stars. You're talking about scanning the Earth, scanning
Yeah.
thousands of
Yeah, that's
miles into the right. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's what I'm hearing. That's what
Yes.
I don't believe. I don't believe these
Do
fairy
waves
tales of
stop
stuff that
working? Do
you
waves
want me to
stop
believe
working?
something. That's the
Hold on,
problem.
Matthew. Matthew, just
Do
1 second.
waves stop working if you just go a farther distance? Do waves just
Just-
suddenly stop
just
being
depends.
waves?
It depends on what types of waves, I guess. I don't know. What waves are you talking about? Radio waves? Television? Like, because what happens if
All
the
of the
television
waves.
signal gets
As
bad,
long
right?
as
Say
there's
if
a
I'm
medium
behind a
for the
mountain.
wave to propagate through without obstruction, I think it would go until it hits a boundary of the medium.
That
Yeah,
sounds
like
pretty
if
good.
I'm in a car
Sounds pretty
driving,
good. So,
Okay,
and I'm hearing the
all right,
radio,
hold on,
right?
Matthew.
But I go in a tunnel.
Matthew.
Matthew,
1 second,
stop,
please.
stop.
Let's the T jump in here just for a second. Like I said,
Pitch. I don't. What is your name? Pitch.
His name's Nathan.
Or yeah,
Nathan.
it's
Nathan is
yeah.
correct. As long as there's a medium for the wave to propagate through, it'll continue to go and then bounce back with signals. Guess what? Earth is a medium. Big rock, stuff can travel through it. So if we send a radio wave or vibrations through it, it'll continue to flow through it till it hits something and bounces back. So just like the example of a baby, if the wave goes through it and bounces back, we'll get a signal, just like it would for the Earth, unless there's like a big gap there.
So
Yeah,
for
like I
instance,
just said, the baby's a lot closer than thousands of miles away. And like I said, if you're in a car listening to a radio and you go into a tunnel, you're not going to be able to really get it too well.
All right.
There's so many things that could stop it. And you want me to believe that
10 seconds.
these waves, right, they're going to penetrate thousands of miles to a place no one can go to or verify. You want me to believe your equations.
well,
I reject
over to Tony.
Sorry.
We sense the earthquakes on the far side of the Earth, don't we? So
Do you have?
I
Yeah, you
showed an
probably have
equator.
machines there.
Matthew, it's Tony's time.
I showed an earthquake. Okay, I'm still talking. I showed an earthquake at Macquarie Island. The waves traveled all the way to the North Pole, and indeed on the flat Earth, they traveled all the way to the far side of the flat Earth. So you're claiming that, well, the waves don't travel that far. Demonstrably, they do.
That's the surface.
Well, they travel through the Earth. All right, we can don't worry your pretty little head about it. I guess.
Well, thank you. Love it.
Well, let's
But you're talking
suppose the
about
world is flat.
surface.
Let's
That's
just
the
suppose the world is flat for a
surface.
minute.
Just one second there, Matthew.
Suppose the world is flat. Earthquakes
Let's ask
do
a question.
happen. There are vibrations, and the vibrations travel from one end of the Earth to the other, which means they necessarily travel that far. Even on a flat Earth, they still travel that far,
On the surface.
which is still far enough.
Yes.
Oh, so you admit you're wrong?
But no, there could be machines that could feel that. That's my point. What machines are down in the center of the Earth that you could verify the signals?
This might be a good time to move on, guys. We got lots more questions. LJ coming in. LJ, you got a nice new fresh picture there looking fly, buddy. In the globe model, you have to believe when you watch the sunset, you are on a ball falling over backwards faster than the speed of sound. Do you feel it? That one is for Tony and TJump. Let's keep these to 1 minute and we can get you guys out of here in a good time.
No, you don't. But you only feel accelerations, and the acceleration involved with the Earth's rotation is smaller than your vestibular system's ability to detect.
All right. Any other thoughts there, TJump, before we move on?
Potato.
All right. Kango 44. Can Nathan and Matthew please give us their PhD credentials? Ooh, the industries they work in that use applied sciences and the papers they have published. Kango is coming right for you.
Hey, my PhD credentials. Hey, I'm keeping Tony on his toes pretty good. He's a PhD, isn't he? That's my PhD credentials. We're banging it.
Okay.
Me, I'm not a PhD.
Feel free to use
with
me
a
as a
PhD pretty
reference.
good.
Feel free to use me as a reference for your intellectual capacities and see how well that works out for you.
I'll show him the video of this debate. This guy's a PhD, ladies and gentlemen. A PhD level, like a doctor. He's the man.
All right. This was already kind of a catty question.
PhD is well earned, difficult to attain. That stuff is legitimate, and for credentials, I had to change my major because of something that I went in school something I got into with the school system and an inaccuracy in what we teach. That it's more based about evolution, but it was obstructing my ability to carry my nutritional cardiology degree forward. And I could talk about that, but yeah, no credentials right now. And you don't have to have a credential to be interested or to want to learn or to talk about topics. And especially if you have someone like Tony who is able to explain things very well, it makes it a lot, learning becomes an easier process. But yeah, those PhDs are definitely earned.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nathan. And
you're very kind. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very nice of you. And let's carry on, guys. LJ, why don't we have real non-CGI videos of space? Do you want to answer that one, TJump?
We do.
Nice and short and sweet. Tony, why don't we have real non-CGI videos of space? Any thoughts there, or do you want to carry on?
We do. It's just the reflexive dismissal of any evidence that runs counter to their belief system as being false traps them. If they see something, they instantly conclude that it must be false, that it must not be what people say it is. And it's kind of sad to see people fall into such paranoid holes.
All right.
It's called
well,
the nuh-uh
Hey,
argument.
can I real quick just share my screen?
I was gonna say I know the natural human inclination is to want to respond. We do have more questions.
Yeah, if I could just have like maybe 10, 15 seconds.
When I said it was natural, it was it's warranted. They'll go ahead if that's how you feel. Let's do it. 20 seconds, 30 seconds if you can.
I think it bears some ability to show the credibility of NASA and the images that were given. So this here should be my screen. So this is something I showed. These are images supposed to be
Just
of
one
the
more
same
screen
Earth,
share. Go
the
ahead.
same data set. So you have the continental United States taking up about an eighth of the entire globe, and then over here you have it taking up about a 16th. So it's about half the size. And then you can get into things as well, like this is Robert Simmons who talks about it's Photoshop, but it has to be. And then this is actually part of his data set where you can see that there are these gaps in the data where they have to actually admit that they stitch it together, they paint it together. And then I had showed it briefly in my intro, but you have the duplicate cloud formations somewhere in here. And so, right here. So you do have these things where you get these anomalies that might not be there. Clouds don't have the exact same shape in several positions. So just something to consider about the validity.
If it was CG, why would they have to stitch it together? They could just make a whole system all like interestingly new shapes. If it was CG, why do they stitch it together if it's CG?
It's just easier to copy Command Z. There's artistry involved. So you hit copy and paste a bunch and duplicate the clouds.
Can I ask you to go back to your first image, please, Nathan?
Sure,
Yeah.
let's reshare that if you don't mind. And
Yeah,
then,
no problem.
go ahead, Tony, if you have some thoughts.
Okay, one of the first exercises I had to do as a research associate was map projections. So I had to make maps of features on the Earth, and this particular feature here is a common map projection. You get this by changing the observer height. That's all that is. There's no fakery here. No, the size that North America takes up depends on how close you are. It's like if I put my hand close, it looks big. If I pull it away, it looks small. There's nothing nefarious about that. It's just that one is taken from closer to the Earth with a different camera than the other one. The properties of the camera and distance to the Earth are the two factors that explain this, not conspiracy.
So I would
to
ask to that when you give the example of your hand, it's
Let's end
the
the screen
whole
share.
of your hand. If you drew like a smiley face on your finger or something, all of your hand is gonna have its apparent size shrink and the smiley face in your hand. But
all I can tell you, Nathan, is that I've done these map projections. I've mapped what this looks like from different altitudes. And this is an accurate idea of what it looks like. And if you don't think that it's an accurate idea of what it looks like from different altitudes, then I would suggest you haven't investigated it. Because
why
that's exactly what I
landmass-
expect.
So why does the landmass shrink, but not the water around it as well, like the whole totality?
That's just a visual. You're looking at an object where they've both been scaled to be the same size. In fact, in the camera, they wouldn't be the same size. One would be smaller than the other because, as you say, the object would be further away. So you're not comparing apples to apples or oranges to oranges here. These are two
Wouldn't
different
the whole
images.
Earth shrink, not just parts of land?
Last thoughts for you, Tony. And we're moving on.
Okay. All I can say is that applying the laws of perspective to the Earth, that's what you see from different altitudes. I can't explain it any more clearly than that. And you trying to find holes why that shouldn't happen, that image that you showed is exactly what I saw when I did this exercise. And I'm telling you what I did, what I saw from these things, and I think you need to stop I think you need to look into that in order to be better equipped to analyze it.
All right, let's ask the next question. Kango 44, measure Earth curve. With total stations, you can do it in an afternoon. Measure the rotation of the Earth with a pendulum or a gyro takes an afternoon. Do TJump's ham radio experiment. Can do it in a weekend. So Kango is basically saying that you can do these experiments. They're very easy, is I think the bottom line of what he's trying to communicate there. 1 minute. We'll try to keep this one. Nathan and Matthew.
Oh, I'm interested in that ham radio test. I mean, yeah, you guys are smarter than me, right? But like, don't they bounce radio waves off the ionosphere? I mean, are you trying to tell me that the moon is within the Earth's ionosphere? I have heard some things from like science people saying that the moon might be in Earth's atmosphere, but is that what you did? Like you shot ham radio waves and bounced off the moon, and other people did the same thing to corroborate your data?
Yes.
So how did your ham radio waves get through the ionosphere or the Van Allen radiation belts and successfully go right back to you?
Because different powers and wavelengths of radio waves can go different distances. Pretty simple.
Nice,
very,
man.
very, very basic, like 8th grade stuff.
Nice. I didn't
Also,
learn any of that.
it also
I didn't learn
needs
any of
to
that
be-
in 8th grade. I didn't talk about that.
It also needs to be pointed out that not everything gets reflected from every surface. So you can have a half-silvered mirror that will allow some of the signal through and reflect only some of the signal. So your mental image is that the ionosphere is a perfect reflector, that it reflects 100% of the wave on impact. And I don't think that that's an accurate image.
How about the idea that maybe the moon is small and local and it's not 250,000 miles away? It's actually, a light that we
that's
see.
perfect.
Sometimes it appears in the clouds. Do you
that's
think
fair.
maybe
There is an experiment called the Lunar Laser Ranging Experiment that bounces lasers off retroreflectors on the moon's surface.
do you have a picture of these reflectors? Can we zoom in on it with the telescope and see these reflectors?
No, you can see them in some imagery from lunar probes.
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah, again, so there's evidence that doesn't agree with what you want to believe. So
No, the
This-
premise
all right.
behind
no,
your
All right, just
that's,
one second
that's
there,
fine.
Matthew.
That's
Just-
fine. Let's move
Matt,
on to the
Matt,
next question.
let me close this one off real quick because
Yeah, this was for you guys. I know she came off mute, so go ahead there, Nathan.
There's a lunar range that we can try to do with the light that we send to the moon and receive a signal back that we are able to detect. And I think that we can estimate the distance of the moon based on how fast we take the speed of light and given the globe model. But we also have to consider that on a flat Earth, there would be different mediums like going through glass that would change the speed at which we receive the light back. And as far as detecting the curvature, I've talked to people who are work with geology and seismology, and they're geodesically involved, and they say it's actually very hard to determine curvature of the Earth over distances up to 100, 200 kilometers.
All right, next one coming in from Grover Reed. It says, I have a solution. How about all flat earthers put their money where their mouth is and pool their money together, build a rocket and take pictures of this flat Earth? Problem solved.
Yeah, all I got to do is be a millionaire,
Agreed,
get all these
100%.
credentials, and get all these politicians in my pocket. Yeah, fairy tales.
You can go to the South Pole and the North Pole on your own. Doesn't take that much. You can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty easy.
Oh,
Someone
yeah,
send a rocket
yeah.
up with a camera on it and just have it film the whole way, live feed, and have it go into space and show the sphericity of
Forget
the Earth.
space. Go to Antarctica.
That's
Just
been-
go.
It wasn't
been
difficult to
done,
get past
Nathan.
low Earth orbit, but they have scheduled small steps that they want to take, the administrations and the government want to take to
All right.
get us to these further away celestial bodies, but we're just not there yet because there's setback after setback after setback.
All right, last word to
Well,
you,
one-
Tony, there, and then we're going to move on.
Okay, there has been footage of cameras strapped to rockets that have gone into orbit. Two, the Artemis probe did make it to an orbit around the moon. So the claim of low Earth orbit is just false. And finally, you don't even need to go to Antarctica. You can go to Argentina and measure the length of that railway track, or you can go to Australia and measure the length of that railway track. Either of those observations permanently debunk the possibility that the Earth is flat.
All right.
If those track lengths are correct, you're just wrong.
All right, let's carry on.
I
Kango
would claim
44.
that the
Sorry, Nathan,
land-
we have to move on. I'm
Oh,
so
yeah,
sorry.
okay.
We got all these questions, and I know TJump said earlier he has to go to bed, and he's carrying on. He going to bed. Yeah.
Peace out, guys. See you later.
They love you, TJump.
Yeah.
Leaving now.
See you later,
Have
TJump.
a good one, Tom.
Thank you so much. I
Having a
appreciate
good
it.
snooze,
All right,
buddy.
thank you for being here. And we had someone to help me keep my sanity in this one.
Do you have sanity?
Goodbye.
We'll
No,
find out
no,
after
no,
these few
no.
messages. Cheers, buddy.
Hey,
All right.
oh.
Let's carry on. We got all kinds of questions, and we'll try to get through them. Thank you, Tony, for staying around on the other side to answer the questions here. We'll try to get through them in under a minute per question, guys, just to get
Be right
everybody out
back
of
real
here.
quick, dude.
Kango 44, question for flat earthers. How far away is the sun? Is it closer than 8,000 miles? New York to Mount Everest is 7,500 miles. 1 minute. What do you guys say?
I'll say my personal opinion, okay? Okay, like everyone should be just figuring this out for themselves, but it's difficult. What I kind of realize, now it may sound crazy, but the lights they're projections of light from the other side of the firmament. There's no way to tell how high up they are, but for sure it's in some type of medium. And what I think is these heavenly bodies, they materialize here at our level, something to do with the clouds. I don't have the information. I would love to be a billionaire and like hire a bunch of people that know what I'm talking about, but that's what my personal opinion of like the altitude of the lights. And I've been reaching out to other flat earthers that are like doing some like hardcore research, and that's like the best thing that I think would be that, because people are having like a difficult time like tracking the sun and like what is the sun? You know what I mean? Like, how is it possible that the sunlight can go to
10
everybody?
seconds.
You know, the way light walks on water, like if you look at the sun at an angle, how the light will come straight to you. Mystical.
Okay. Let's carry on.
May I
Can I-
say
can I-
something very briefly?
Oh boy, we're all right. As long as you guys are good to
10
hang out.
seconds. 10 seconds, I promise. What he means to say there is that the assumption that the planets, the stars, and the sun and the moon are physical objects results in observations that are absolutely inconsistent with his theory. So he has to imagine that there's something else.
No, I'm looking at reality. I'm not jumping in with the assumption that everything's a ball. That's maybe your difficulty, is jumping into this situation like everything must be a ball. The earth must be a ball. The sun must be a ball. Well, no, I'm sorry. The lights point down towards us. I don't think the moon's a rock. That's why we all see the same face, no matter who's looking at it. We never see the other side. We never see any sort of like moon curvature, which is also very funny. The idea that the moon is curved, right? And I'll tell you something cool. I used my Nikon P1000 and took the best full moon video. And you know what? There's no craters on the moon, only gold, like glowing rings. You can look at my YouTube.
Okay,
Real quick. Go
the
on,
claim-
Tony.
The claim that there's no curvature to the moon is disproved by lunar libration. So that's just wrong to start.
Cool
that-
word.
that's just-
Fancy
Alright.
word, dude.
There are
Very funny.
oscillations in the energy put outs that the moon has that might change surface features depending on if it's a sort of plasma. But I think this is one thing that I just want to hopefully make clear to people is if you're considering two different models that are trying to explain the natural world, you can't take what one paradigm says and apply it to the other. So there's a claim from the globe side that says we know the exact distances of these objects that are very far away, and so we need to keep in mind that the claim of a flat earth, a biblical earth, is that we don't really know the heavens too well, so we don't have these kind of assumptions to make that based on this height and this size of an object. Like Venus was just estimated to be about the size of the Earth,
Okay.
and then they can do the math from there,
Before
the
we get down
trigonometry.
another rabbit hole there, Nathan.
The guesses,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Best
I
guesses.
appreciate you, buddy, and I appreciate you guys in the discussion. It's just that I do know that we had some, like I say, some consent to the time frames that we were going to have for the debate tonight. So let's just double check here. We got 10 minutes about at the maximum to get you guys out of here. That's 3 hours, everybody. You can't ask for more than that. I mean, we've done everything we can. Matters Now says we have pictures of the other side of the moon with the moon passing in front of the Earth. To say we haven't is false. After show on Matters Now. Questions?
You're getting that
Concerns.
image from people who can make it rain over fires and over our food when farmers are experiencing drought, and people don't make it rain to help our people. And those are the people giving you these images based on the data. Just something to keep in mind is how their willingness to help us with our own tax dollars. They make $50-60 million a day. Are we giving it to Chicago, Detroit, Compton, these places that could use the money? They can do these types of things. They can put the fires out. They can make it rain. We have geoengineering technology. Operation Popeye is something that they did in war against our opponents. So why don't we use it to help our own people? And then you have like the duplication of clouds and everything. So and admittance to CGI, something to keep in mind with the data that they're giving us. And can we verify it from here?
Yeah, you still got 15 seconds, Matthew.
Just let me say, like, this systems of the Earth, I mean, in my opinion, right, it's all controlled by Satan. We're awaiting the time when our king's going to return, and it's going to get worse until that time comes. And there's all kinds of deceptions on the Earth. And I would say this globe religion is the biggest lie Satan's ever put on the Earth.
All right, let's carry on, guys. Mercedes F1 fan says the false postulations and assumptions is not considered evidence. I demand empirical observations without electrical components, only a mechanical device which shows curvature, and I will acquiesce.
Okay, then you can use mechanical devices to measure the track lengths and compare them against the spherical distance formula.
And mechanical gyros that don't have an internal motor that can be electromagnetically influenced actually do not appear to move. And these can be high precision. But if you get something like a gyro compass or something that can be programmed, calibrated, has internal electrical components, the ether is able to influence that, and then we can measure that only one rotation, which is the star rotation, the sidereal rotation. We never measure. That's claimed to be an absolute motion. And then the orbit of the sun, the galactic orbit, and the galactic drift are all claimed to be relative. But you are adding those relative vectors onto an absolute motion. And so they should be picked up by our ability to detect, because like Matt said in his opening, it's not an hour hand of a clock moving at half the speed. It's covering a large distance in the same amount of time. And that is sensitive enough for our light apparatuses to be able to detect solar orbit, galactic drift, but none of those show up. Only the ether rotation or the claimed rotation of the Earth. They're equally valid mathematical frameworks, and it's what is our empirical tests show repeatedly.
Okay, I'm going to object here because what you just said was absolute nonsense. There is no scientific evidence verifying the existence of an ether. There is no scientific evidence verifying that ethereal rotation has any influence on gyroscopes. There's absolutely no substantiation for anything that you claimed in that torrent of word salad. And I recognize that Whitsitt is the source of it, but you should know better than to vomit stuff that is absolutely contradicted by every scientific organization, every scientific institution, every professional scientist, and every scientific journal on the face of the planet. And to succumb to just vomiting deranged nonsense with no factual validation whatsoever is a disservice to what you've come here to do. We're supposed to be engaging in a debate, and you making a series of fallacious claims that such and such is without any evidentiary basis whatsoever. You didn't produce any evidence validating you just made the claim. This is due to ethereal rotation. No, it isn't. And you haven't produced a scintilla of observational evidence to back that up. Neither has Whitsitt, neither has Ken Wheeler or whoever the hell prattles on about it. So please, when you make a statement, you're hypothesizing, don't state it as reality. If you say, we theorize, we think, we believe, okay, I will let you get away with it. But when you say this is so, you need observational evidence. Otherwise, you're lying.
Oh my God, dude! I wish
And
I could
would
say
I would
that
say
for
that
you.
I get the final say here because this question was directed to me.
He is
Okay,
not
the question
technically
was
wrong
directed
on
at
that,
me.
but we should move on. That is correct.
Okay.
This could spiral us back into a whole lot of stuff. So let's
I
carry
would
on.
say take your own advice, dude. Don't blame other
No,
people.
no,
for
no.
their
Matt, let him-
We,
let him-
we
advice,
just,
bro.
Matthew, just hold on. We're just going to ask
I love
everybody
you.
to be mature in this moment, and let's carry on. Jay Sturm, I have never seen a more eloquent and articulation of reasoning than Tony against flat earthers with the earthquake. Can Tony go into more specific details about the rate of waves versus under the crust? All right, so this one's for you, Tony. They want you to go into more detail, and then we'll carry on.
Yes, so the P wave and S wave velocities can be calculated from observations, from how long the waves take to travel, but we can also do experiments in the laboratory where we get material that has been erupted through volcanoes, and we subject it to high pressure and temperature, and we observationally validate the P wave and S wave velocities. We can also calculate the elastic parameters of these rocks under various phase transitions, and we can use those to confirm the validity of our proposed structure. So where Earth's material is hot, generally the wave velocities are slower. Where it is cooler, the wave velocities are faster. So we can see, for instance, subducting slabs, which are largely solid, have very high wave velocities through them.
Thank you so much for answering that question there, Tony. Let's carry on.
I agree that Tony makes a really good point, especially about determining the shape of the earth. It's important to stick to the shape of the earth, and things like physical distance measures like railroad track or anything like that with length would be probably the most helpful way, because they're absolute rulers of determining a length. We could use that to figure out distances of things. I think that's incredibly well put as well. This guy is, golly, he's very smart. People who go to school, there are a lot of smart people who go to school, even if they're paying for an expensive education. Smart people. Tony is definitely one of them. So.
Well, thank you. You're very kind, and I'm sorry for snapping earlier, and I realize you're just doing what a lot of people do, but we need to stay in observations. We need to back what we say with observations at every point. Okay.
All right, let's carry on there, guys. And I'm sorry if I cut you off there, Nathan. I just was trying to give that question there specifically to Tony, since it was very specifically addressed. But that's of very little concern. Like I said, we're very chill here this evening. John Smith, TJump. Oh, why do you always pretend to be tired in debates? Is what they asked. Well, TJump is no longer here, but I don't know if he's pretending, or maybe he's just tired. Maybe he's not tired at all. I don't notice him acting any kind of way. So let's carry on, everybody. I think we kept everything on good track this evening. Big Snag says, how do earthquakes work on a flat earth? If this is talk about sorry, if not, is the data just a part of the conspiracy? What?
Wait, is the question like, how are earthquakes possible on a flat earth? I would say there's all kinds of geothermal activity. I don't know what's going on down beneath, far beneath where I am. I mean, how far down can we send devices to track what's going on?
And you also have
I think they made a typo. If you want to clarify in the chat. But go ahead. Continue on, Nathan.
It's possible, sure.
And there are conditions like the ground. If objects are heated up, there's something called like thermal expansion and things. So that when it expands and then it recontracts, there's going to be alterations to the makeup and the composition of the material. So I think there are several factors. There are plates that are in a fluid of oil, and so they might be moving around. So there can be these types of things.
I just need to factually correct you. The plates are not in a field of oil. That's not what's happening. You don't get any oil at the bottom of plate boundaries. Oil is very superficial, but what happens physically is the rock has water in it. It's a tiny fraction. It's a fraction of a percent of water, but it's enough to make a difference. If you have a tiny abundance of water, that actually weakens the rock and makes it easier for the rock to flow. And that's what causes sort of differences in the hardness or brittleness or flow characteristics of rock, is that water composition.
Can I throw a weird theory out there? I know maybe no one said it yet. I don't know if you guys knew there was like giant trees on the earth that got cut down. What I was thinking was there was some type of like event X, like a cataclysm that melted brick buildings and other stuff. And what I think happened is these trees that got cut down, the roots are still seeking out water. Now, how can I prove that? In my city, the water comes from the hills, which surprisingly enough looks like a giant tree stump. There's giant white tanks. I don't know if you have them in your area. And what I see is there's hills that do look flat. And I was always curious about, how do we get the water from the ground? How does the water pumped up to those hills? And the reason I bring up that cataclysm is that if the surface area was fossilized instantaneously, it's possible that the root systems still exist and are still getting water, just like a tree would do, right? And I was always curious about that in my area, why the water is pumped down from the hills. And then I consider, what if that's like the earthquakes are these roots going through the earth? That's it. That was just a weird personal theory I had,
All right. The Wickerman asks, this is not a very nice question there, the Wickerman. I'm so sorry. Let me just try to clean this up. He's not. He doesn't feel very kindly towards you, Nathan and Matthew, but he does say respect to PhD Tony and TJump. So thank you for the support.
What's his name? What's his handle? What's his name?
Oh, you calm down. All right, so he strikes twice. He strikes twice. The Wickerman says,
Love you.
Name me one flat earther, inventor, or invention.
Flat earther inventions? I don't know. I mean, who was a flat earther? Like Tesla? He was a flat earther. I know Elon Musk is throwing some stuff out that he's a flat earther. That's very interesting to me. When Elon Musk puts out little stuff, and he's supposed to be the most notable inventor, tycoon, whatever, on the forefront that we have. He was learning about flat earth.
Small correction. Elon Musk hasn't really invented anything.
I think you're right about that. I think he's an actor, but the point is that's his character. Like, his character is that guy, and he's known for developing it. And yeah, I mean, if he's putting stuff out about the firmament, and I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't know what their personal beliefs of every inventor throughout known history, but probably some people thought, this place looks flat and this place doesn't feel like it's moving. It's possible. Just putting it out there.
All right, that was our last super chat. So what we should do, since we just ended on that note there, and I'm sure you have some thoughts there, Tony, let's do a round of 1 minute closing statements, and maybe we can get that wrapped up in there. So I will give you, since TJump is not here, Tony, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay.
But I like doing it EU style. Some people don't like that. But Nathan, Matthew, who would like to close first?
Matt,
I'm happy to.
All right, go ahead, Matthew. You got 1 minute on the floor.
1 minute? Okay, you know what, guys? You know what I was imagining? What if we're all in heaven one day far from now, and we're just in heaven, like we're all watching this video, like we're all watching us, and we're just feeling the love with the Lord, and we're just like swimming around in heaven, singing, thank you, God, like loving creation. I like that prayer, but I hope we live a long, happy life, guys. I don't want any of us to pass away anytime soon. I want us to just thrive and be successful. And I just want to say I love all you guys. Ryan, Tony, big TJump. What's up, TJump? Love you. Nathan, yeah, man, excellent partner. That's what I want to say. Thank you to the creator. And I want to say I love Jesus Christ. You have a relationship with him. You know, it's never too late. As long as you're
10
alive,
seconds.
you can always turn your life back to the Lord. And that's it.
All right. Well, I'll always return it with "I love you too, buddy," and I'm glad that you're here and that you're cordial and you know we're having a lot of fun here. This is modern day debate. I got lots to go around, everybody, and I'm a big singer. I mean, I might sing something at the end of this. You never know. I sometimes put on my tunes. It just depends on how I feel. Nathan, 1 minute on the floor for you.
Yeah, so I think with this discussion, I think it's important to have because I think there are, unfortunately, we probably don't know anyone, but there are some people who are nefarious out there who might consider harming others for their own gain. And I feel like that this is a thing that we can use to kind of shine a light on some of these things, like Operation Sea Spray or large area coverage, where we've been tested on as research subjects for experimental purposes, and people have been harmed and killed. And this is from the people supposed to be protecting us with our tax dollars and everything. But I think with this cosmological discussion, it can validate religion or it can falsify the ancient beliefs of man if the Earth was shown to be a globe, and we can work towards achieving more peaceful civilizations with civil discourse and everything involved with that, especially with our technology and our communication in this time that we live. And so I think when we're talking about
10 seconds.
geomorphology, we should focus on the shape of the Earth itself as primary. Then we can talk about sky phenomena, how things act on the Earth or above the surface or on the surface. And I would just ask before
That's
it gets
time.
passed over to Tony. Tony, if you mean it, can you just say geology rocks? If you mean it,
Pun
Geology
intended.
rocks.
Pun intended. Beauty. All right, I was gonna say that is a dad
thank you
joke if
everybody
I've ever
too.
heard.
That's what. Thank you everybody for being here.
Well, thank you as well, Nathan and Matthew, for your closing statements and for staying a little bit longer than what we may have intended originally. If you're watching in the live stream right now, hit the like button. We super appreciate that. If you got thumbs, if you have a nose that's warm, hit that like button. 2 minutes, Tony, on the floor. Your closing
Okay.
statement.
First of all, I wanted to say thank you. The exchanges got heated. I have a very short temper sometimes, so my apologies for that if it happened. Thank you very much for moderating, Ryan. I think you did a fantastic job, and for Nathan and Matthew, I really enjoyed meeting you and talking with you. Thank you very much for that. I agree that, well, my concern is that people only have a finite time of life, and it would be nice if we could all live. But I feel like Flat Earth is encouraging people to actually waste time. And there are conspiracies out there. There are malicious actors out there. There are liars out there who are trying to exploit us. But the globe Earth is not one of those things. And I think we could focus better, more efficiently on the people who are bad actors if we could accept a shared reality in which observational data, so we could easily dispense with the observational data for the shape of the Earth, in my opinion, and then we could move on to these other problems, and as you say, better direct things to them. So I appreciate the goodwill that Matthew and Matthew and Nathan brought to bear, very genuinely, and I'm hoping that sort of I have access to data and to things that other people don't. That's a result of, I'm very fortunate that way as a result of my education. And my aim is not to belittle people. It's not to force people, but it is to help people sort of understand the evidence that we have available, if that makes any sense.
Awesome. All right. Well, you just wrapped that up. You had 10 seconds left. So I think that's good, everybody. We're going to call that a wrap. So once again, if you haven't hit that like button, smack it around a little bit. We don't mind that. We're going to be back on Friday for more juicy debates. So keep a good eye out on that. We're going to be debating. Is it Mormonism? Latter-day Saints? Let's have a look over there. Why don't you go check for me? That would be great. And hit the notification while you're at it. So let's close it on out. Thank you, Matthew, Nathan, Dr. Tony, and TJump. All right, everybody was on excellent behavior this evening. I appreciate it, everyone. We'll see you next time on Modern Day Debate. Cheers, everyone.
What am I to do but tear away when I'm boiling at the top? Try to find a way to fight the fire, smart to rap from the minds of liars, who call the shots as you bow your heads, and the marching never stops. The stars could be free, but this insanity bends you right by the knee. Running in circles now for something that can't be found, and I bet as you hit the wall, the rain starts to fall. You can run away, sing a tune that's true, I'll be beside you. Who's the one that holds you down? Push through there in your way, anything to make you stay. Cut the strings before your life starts to decay. From tears of blood, regrets of laughter, turn around as your heart beat faster. Your hollow shape as the faith begins to drop. Shelter can find your thoughts of suicide. It's hanging down